Hello and welcome to the Challengers League of LCK. It is me, Valdez, with Wolf, and we are here for our first day. Of course, yesterday we did have the wonderful Atlas and Chronicler joining you, but now it will be me with Wolf, and really excited to start the Challengers League. Very happy to be here. How are you feeling, Wolf?
I'm feeling good. We've been following the Challengers League pretty, I wouldn't say very closely, but I think kind of casually over the last 2 years. With the rebranding and stuff like that. Chronicler's obviously been streaming it. So we've always been pretty interested in these Challenger players, what their backgrounds are, and when they'll join the LCK, always keeping an eye on, are these players getting called up? You know, we used to have you can only change the players every few weeks, etc. Now the players can always be called up at any time going into LCK. So it's a much more important time to be following Challengers than it ever was before. So it's really exciting to now get a first look, I think, as a caster at some of these players where you've watched VODs before, you study champion pools, but actually really look at them, focus on them, look at their play in a very technical way. And I've always loved casting amateur scenes out here in Korea.
Yeah, and just the fact, like you mentioned, we could see one of these guys on a Monday or a Tuesday, and then we might see them on a Thursday or a Friday in the LCK. If somebody does really, really well and they outperform the rest of the squads out here, maybe they get a chance to go to the big leagues, and that's a really cool kind of idea. So make sure you guys are also tuning into this broadcast and kind of seeing which players are really good. We are going to be casting some very strong players today for sure.
Absolutely.
Today is not 3 best of 3s, so hopefully we we keep our minds a little bit more intact than the boys did yesterday. Should be just a pretty fun, kind of relaxed broadcast for this one, and I think the games today are going to be pretty fun as well.
I think they will. I'm really excited to see T1's new roster at work, and obviously Ilima is one of the players I'm most excited to commentate from Kwangdong Freaks' Challenger roster because he's been in the forefront of the top laners here in Challengers for a long time. I think he's been surpassed by some other players over the time in which he's dominated. He's been up and down, and a player who was playing behind Keen when Keen was on Kwangdong, of course. Keen has now moved to KT Rolster, but Dudu took his spot. So he's still in Challengers, actually, which is a shocker to me, but we just have such a stacked roster of teams in the LCK. Here's our overview. You guys saw this yesterday. Mondays, we start early at 2 p.m. KST. Tuesdays, we start now, 5 p.m.
Yeah, 5 p.m. And, of course, there will be co-streaming on Thursday and Friday at 2. So if you do not have enough Korean League of Legends in your life, you could always watch the fantastic co-streamers that are doing that and then watch LCK afterwards. So there's going to be a lot of Korean League of Legends. And outside of just getting a chance to make it to the LCK or, to fulfill your dreams, you can make also a lot of money, which is pretty cool to see, putting in the big bucks here for even the Challengers League, and could be life-changing and put you on the road to your next step.
Especially for some of these players who are so young. For the LCK players, something like 1 million won might be like, yeah, well, I made like 4 times that in that one sponsorship deal I did on the side. But to be round MVP and to really get that on your resume trying to go into LCK and also pick up that cash is really awesome for these players who are super young. We have this really sick lineup of teams. It's the same lineup of teams, obviously, we have in the LCK with all of their academy teams. And it's really fun to see how some teams work really closely with their academy teams. Some teams not so much. They use it more of a feeder team for the LCK, sell the players, whether to teams around the world or in the LCK. And winning the Challengers League, I think, is becoming more and more important as more seasons go by. Format, as mentioned yesterday, Chronicler pointed this out, it's basically exactly the same as the LCK, including playoffs.
Yeah, just burn this into your memory, and you'll be ready for all of the Korean League of Legends. I kind of like how it's pretty streamlined now. Everybody's kind of on the same page. And we get double elimination as well, which is very cool to see. A lot of people definitely calling for that in many different stages, many different tournaments around the world, in many different esports. And finally, we get some over here in Korea. So it is going to be pretty fun. You guys did take a look at the team list as well. Some of the names for the Challenger League teams will be slightly different, but, basically just the feeder team for their LCK team, as here's the integrated roster operation that we were talking about as well.
Yeah, so every team can have a maximum of 20 players, and this is, of course, including both their Challengers roster and their LCK roster. So you can have up to 20. You have to have at least 11, so 5 per team plus 1 substitution is the minimum. In terms of coaching staff, you have to have a coach, but the head coach position is quite specifically different in Korea because it sometimes means someone like Koma's role when he was on D+ Kia or Damwon Kia, where you're kind of an operations manager, not really a coach. So if you have that, you get 1 extra spot to have the 4 coaches maximum, but you can have normally up to 3. So a lot of expanded operations here with the new rules for 2023.
Yeah, and this is week 1. This is Tuesday, the second day. You'll note that it's match 4. That's because they played 3 matches yesterday. So we are going to round it out with 2 more today. Kwangdong Freaks up against KT, and then we do have T1 versus Live Sandbox Youth, which is their Challengers League team.
That's right. They've got a special name. They don't want to just copy everybody else with the Academy or Challengers names. To give everyone context, because it's been asked a lot, I've seen this in Twitch chat a lot throughout LCK, but also yesterday specifically when I was watching chat with you guys, I was chatting with you. The Academy series actually starts in about 2 weeks, and there is a LCK Academy series, which is what the 3rd string teams are. So there's each of these teams has 1/3 team, not all of them, but most of them have 1/3 team, the Academy team. Those players generally are the youngest. They feed into this Challengers League, and then the Challengers teams feed into the LCKs. Just to explain that, so these are the Challengers rosters. They are Academy teams in the traditional sense. Other regions call them Academy teams. We call them Challengers teams because there's that 3rd tier below.
And English casting for that in 5 years. We'll be working 8 days a week. But don't worry about us. We'll figure it out. And eventually we'll do the 4th string as well. Here is Kwangdong Freaks. They do have that very notable person that you mentioned before, Ilima, still in the top lane for this team.
Keeps adding more L's to his name every season. And Ilima, I'm very excited because Ilima, he's been around since when he was a Dragon X trainee. He's always been one of the hyped up top laners that we just haven't seen in the LCK just yet. Very impressive player who likes to play aggressive top lane champions, and this is a meta where that's kind of on the rise. So I'm expecting he's going to have a good season.
Yeah. Any Cassante enjoyers in the chat? Probably a few of you, especially after yesterday. Cassante very strong right now. Here's the KT Rolster lineup. Castle is going to be going up against Ilima in the top lane. Feisty still here, but he's alone in the mid lane there on this new team of KT for him.
Yeah, so Feisty moving from Frederick Brion, of course. He did play in the LCK very briefly when Frederick Brion had COVID last year. Castle's kind of been a mainstay for KT's Challengers team. Used to be called Top. He played for their Academy roster, moved up last year. He's a name that if you watch Challengers, you know a lot. And I'd say he's probably in the top half right now of top laners in the LCK. But the most famous KT player we have today is definitely Rebel, who's changed the spelling of his name because he's a rebel and he doesn't want to spell it the same way we all do. And we're jumping right into picks and bans, but he's a great support player. One of the players I thought we were going to see in 2021 for KT Rolster, but he's still here in Challengers.
Yeah. And we'll talk about the names a bit more as we do get along here. We will have this entire best of 3. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the one that goes all the way to Game 3. You know, just a personal idea. You know, we'll see what happens here. I know Challenger League is kind of crazy. Sometimes you just flip over Elder Dragons, and that's the only thing that matters. But taking a look here at some of the bans already, that first Syndra ban, pretty interesting. We've been seeing a little bit more of Syndra, but no Cassante ban, nothing like that.
Yumi's off the cards, though, at least for this first game, so not everyone's excited about that. I think the Cassante for Ilima is definitely one that stands out as a first pick potential, but given that Heimerdinger is still up, Varus always a strong pick here, and that is going to be the one that goes over first to the side of Kwangdong Freaks. Let's see how KT Rolster respond here. Zeri still open. This is a very common matchup where you sit under turret a little bit of Zeri, you take the pressure to hope to carry the game later on versus the poke of the Varus damage. And now you've got the peel of Wukong, aka Monkey King, here for KT Rolster.
Yeah, you know, we saw a little bit of that as well yesterday. Zeri picking up a pentakill in her first day of Challengers for 2023. I wasn't too surprised, and I wouldn't be surprised if it happens again. We'll see just how much they want to play around the Zeri in terms of their composition, or if it'll just be kind of a standalone, as we are taking a look here, and now it's going to be Ashe support.
Here we go.
Yep.
The abusive lane, and now KT have to make some tough decisions here because there's a few prio mid laners they could grab. The Ryze is one that sticks out. It's one that's often banned in the second phase. But you could also look for the Gnar pick that responds to the K'Sante pretty well in the laning phase. We're not super sold on it, I think, as an LCK casting team just yet, but it has been fairly successful, at least in the laning phase. Gwen also still a pretty viable option here for KT for Castle in the top lane to duel K'Sante. We don't know what that mid lane is going to be just yet. And yeah, we saw this yesterday. Elise dive with the Varus, very annoying to deal with that pushing lane. They're not going to let Courage play that.
Yeah, it's not going to happen here, not in this first game. The Gnar ban comes out, so Kwangdong were also saying that, hey, Gnar is a good response to the K'Sante. I wouldn't call it great, but, you know, it stands its own. It's got some good team fighting potential, so not a bad idea, I suppose, but we'll have to watch more games, of course. And, yeah, going for the Lulu, just trying to get some more protection for the Zeri.
So extremely strong with the Wukong because you can turn his double knockup into a triple knockup that way. Plus save Zeri, deal with the pressure in the lane pretty well with the Glitter Lance, try your best to stave off that aggressive pressure down there. And because of that, taking away one of the strong topside champions in the Jace to say, okay, weak side is bottom for us, let's try to control top lane with Jace. Strong idea. Obviously Jace can, you know, counter some of that Varus poke as well. Will be the Ryze that comes through here though for Feisty here. Really strong in terms of his rotational power right now and can relieve a lot of the pressure actually in the bottom lane and top lane when he does have mid prio.
Yeah, definitely one of these mid laners that has been coming in. I believe yesterday we saw a Kassadin and Zeri combination that kind of got stomped out pretty early, so even though those champs have a lot of scaling power, we'll have to see just how careful teams are in terms of how far they want to go with that. I would assume we'll see some Kassadin in the LCK, no doubt, but not going to happen here as Ahri is coming through and also Lee Sin.
I think Kwangdong Freaks' game plan is pretty clear. Strong top laner and play around bottom side. You have Ahri, you could set up dives bottom side. It's going to be a little bit tougher against the Ryze, but took away the Vi, took away the Elise. It's cool. We're going to play Lee Sin. We're still going to look for dives in that bottom lane. We're still going to try to get those plates down early. And it will be actually the Fiora to respond. So the late game here of KT Rolster's Challenger squad is pretty insane. You have 1-3-1 power with the Ryze and the Fiora. You do have Wukong to support that as well in the jungle. So if there is a dive attempt or someone's trying to come over, or a squad comes over to try to shut down the Fiora, Wukong is really great at shutting that down because his ultimate can AoE stop everyone on the chase. Then you have this really good peel for the amazing damage that is going to be Zeri in the late game. I think it's going to be a lot about can Kwangdong get the picks they're looking for in this first game.
Yeah, I mean, getting picks, being proactive, trying to make stuff happen early is certainly going to be their game plan. And they're a team that, together, with confidence, I think they can actually make it happen. KT Rolster, again, they just need to hold off. We saw that D+ Kia yesterday. They were doing a really good job of just controlling the tempo for whatever kind of game they wanted to play, whether it was aggressive or kind of scaly themselves. So maybe Kwangdong can kind of put on the pressure that D+ did in their game number one.
Yeah, I think that is definitely the idea with this comp, but not as strong of one as what we saw from D+ Kia yesterday. Definitely looking to be so far the strongest challengers team. Only day one yesterday, of course, so still too early to judge, but they looked very good, as Chronicler predicted. And I think that this bottom lane pressure is going to be pretty tough for Hype and Rebel to handle. I think a lot of this early game is going to be decided by how well Hambach supports them down there, and if Castle can hold his own against Illima in the top lane.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the Fiora coming out here in this situation. You know, R5 pick, you know exactly what you're going to as a team. It fits with their team composition. There's like a lot of positive kind of synergies that you get with a pick like that. Fiora pretty strong in her own right and can go up against the K'Sante in the lane. But guys, it looks like game number one is loading up. Let's hop onto the rifts. And here we are, right into the game. And Kwangdong are starting off and saying, okay, the top side of the jungle could be ours. Looks like they're not going to fully commit to it, but they do want to know where Hambak is starting.
Yep, just trying to get some extra information here early on. Drop that ward onto the red buff. Here are the runes. Nothing shocking here across the board. Lethal Tempo, Zeri, and...
Yeah, double hail blades. For the Varus and the Ashe.
Shocker.
Yeah, not a big shocker, but it's still very oppressive. And if you get close enough, you will get blown up by a flurry of arrows, essentially. So don't get close to that. And hopefully you can survive that lane. It's not going to be easy.
We'll give Feisty that extra ward gold. Love to see it.
Small bit of XP.
Yeah. Gonna help him hit level 2 faster. So my most exciting matchup for this series was going to be the top lane matchup, obviously, because I think Castle has kind of become a KT veteran for the Challengers League at this point, and Illima, he needs no introduction, right? It's, yeah, this is how this bottom lane's going to go. We don't even really need to watch it. It's very sad.
Yeah.
But I think if Castle ends up losing out in this top lane matchup, even slightly, really, this game becomes so lopsided in the early game because the bot lane is kind of default won so easily by Kwangdong Freaks. And in the early levels here for Illima, he is going to be able to put some pressure onto Castle with his passive. But Castle is really going to have to play this one well, and Hambak is going to have to make some tough choices here in the early game. Will he try to get the Fiora ahead early, or is he going to come and try to punish that bottom duo that is just going to put pressure on the turret and try to stop Hype and Rebel from existing?
Saw a little bit of the mid lane as well. Feisty, a veteran of the Challengers League, already putting on that pressure. You know, maybe trying to be one of the winning lanes for his team, because if they don't have him, they don't have any. It's not going to feel too good. It's a little bit less of the 2022 feels where if this would happen, the winning team jungler would just enter the enemy jungler side and say, okay, your jungle is now mine. And Peanut did a great job of this on picks such as Poppy. A little bit harder to do that nowadays in 2023 with some of the jungle changes and how it can be more difficult to counter jungle. But we'll see just what kind of play he is going to go for. Lee Sin obviously can make some waves early on in the game.
The level 3 invade we saw all the time into Zeri lanes. Courage is looking for it. He's going to push Hambak out of his jungle. So big trade here. Sorry, I play-by-played for a second.
Whoa!
I was going to go on to a point about this invade here at level 3, but then I'm like, is it actually going to be a killer fight? And just big trades. But this is very annoying for Hambak because he obviously has no support from his bottom 2v2. They're already losing CS, 13 CS behind. Then if they come over here, it's just a big loss in general. And Courage commits really nothing to this. He's going to go, okay, cool, just take the skull and walk away. More CS being lost here for Hype. It's under so much pressure right now. I mean, it's a plate down already. And this is what you could do on blue side that you cannot do on red side with a pick like the Varus Ashe. So that's why it's such a strong first pick on blue side, because of that blue invade. We saw this so much with Caitlyn last year. We saw it with Lucian Nami lanes last year. You have an aggressive jungle pick. You go in at level 3. Harass that blue buff jungler, and he's like, just want to take it, please, but I also got to defend the bot lane, and I got to pass this way. And you already had the information about the ward and stuff like that, so you feel really good as Kwangdong's early game right now, as you should with this draft. And he's looking for the follow-up.
Yeah, here we go. I mean, Hype is already incredibly low. They do have all their summoners. We'll see if this helps him at all. No, it's not. First blood pretty sufficiently easily enough there for the side of Kwangdong Freaks. Courage gets in. We did see that Andil got a little bit low, but he is going to be just fine. So that's first blood. It does go over to Lee Sin, as Cleaver is a little bit low here. Should be okay.
Just barely doesn't get that turret shot off onto Feisty. Wanted to charm him under turret to at least get that one extra shot. Not quite able to do it. And yeah, I mean, look at the CS now. It's getting
what
worse
CS?
And worse. Yeah. You put it more plainly. Speaking of another lane matchup, though, in the CS, 20 CS lead for Feisty right now. You mentioned his CS in the early parts of this. One of that, of course, being that ward kill earlier on. But he's got a pretty massive lead in this matchup early with the Rise. So at least that's going very well here for KT. Fiora staved the pressure. This is just a tragedy. Notice Wukong's path towards the top side here after stopping the pressure, but that's, you know, that's what he has to do. He has to farm. He doesn't have his ultimate yet. He can't defend this very easily. And as a result, Hype is just left out to dry.
Yeah, it's really rough because not only is he dying, he's giving kill gold over to the enemy team. He is losing more and more farm, and it only makes this lane even more difficult. So it's going to be a while before he really gets any chance to farm realistically in the lane. Probably just going to be hugging the turret for now. You'll note that the top lane as well, Illima keeping a pretty steady 10 CS lead here already. And Courage, he says, to hell with the year. I am going to be in your face all day long. And he's going to find Hambach here, who does not have his W, I suppose. He is just going to have to flash away from that one, as Courage has the support from both of his lanes. Yeah. He has winning lanes, so like KT's coming over trying to help him get a Gromp, which he does, but that was very difficult for them.
Yeah, it really was, and you know, it's just going to further exacerbate the problem for Hype here in the bottom lane, losing a few more CS to Turret. I think losing probably about 2 there on this push. We'll be able to come clean up the next wave, but this is just straight up a free dragon now for Kwangdong Freaks. Nothing that KT can do about this, and it's so frustrating as a jungler in this situation. I think this is one of the main frustrations with the jungle role right now across all levels, is if your lanes are losing, they're begging you for a gank, they're begging for help, but if you go over there, you're going to lose farm. Best case scenario, you might also end up dying because you're up against a Varus Ashe. You don't have your ultimate as Wukong in this case. Your W is on such a long cooldown that if you have to use that, it really hurts you, as we saw there. And there's just not much you could do in this early game, so you have to try to find something elsewhere on the map, which is why this Cassante pick has been so fantastic for Illima, because even against a Fiora here, there's just not much Castle could do pressure-wise pre-6, and even post-6 it's going to be difficult, as the one place, again, KT are finding success is Feisty, taking a 20 CS lead as Valdez having a coughing fit.
Dying over here. It's okay. We got Jeff.
There you go. That's what's causing it. That's what's causing it, Jeff on the Rift.
Yeah, I just got a little bit too overexcited. You know, my man Jeff, he's back. Not yet, though. We still need to wait 4 minutes.
He's on the way.
He's on the way. He'll be here.
I guess it is pretty important to mention that one of the big stars of Kwangdong Freaks was Bulldog, who's now moved up to the LCK roster. And so, you know, one of the big holes in Kwangdong's roster potentially could be Cleaver, their new mid player. And I don't want to judge him in this Rise matchup early for being behind in CS, but let's see how he does in the mid game here, because the leads that Illima and Bull and Andil have picked up here are pretty massive, and he has now kind of to be the glue between these two winning lanes, as Courage misses the Q.
Not sure what Hambach is doing here, but he's dead. I think
so. I can tell you what he's doing.
Okay, what was he doing?
He wanted to set up a dive, or not a dive, but a gank on the bottom side because they were pushed up. So he was hoping he could actually skirt vision. But look at all the vision that's actually around the jungle here. There was that ward below the red buff. There's one in the Dragon Pit. That third control ward is actually just used to ward hop there. That wasn't there before. But he wanted to sneak around and come punish the Bull and Andil push bottom side there. But he's just spotted and killed. So he looks foolish in this case. The idea was good, but I mean, that's what you have to do as well. You're like, I hit 6. I could do something now. I could punish this Varus Ashe, who could definitely both just ult me and keep me away. But I want to try. I want to try. And then
should have gone mid.
Yeah.
That would have been my choice. You know, there's not a lot that a Zeri and a Lulu can do to really force fights. I mean, especially this early on. The Zeri looks like she did hit level 6, but yeah, I mean, unless they're quite literally under turret and you know that the Lee Sin is not there, that would be probably the one chance to do it. But instead it was like he was so far in the jungle, he was maybe even looking for the Lee Sin, and he found him. He certainly found him pretty quickly. And he also found his doom, so he is going to go down. This top lane is not really looking any better as well. It looks like Castle, you know, sometimes the top lane can be a bit of a fight of endurance, and you're seeing very simply here, you know, both top laners don't have their teleport, but Illima is still pushing. He's still up 10-15 CS, and this lane is not getting any easier for our Fiora player as Illima goes in, and forces out the riposte right before we do have the Lee Sin here.
Yeah, he's just forced out a lane. It's going to be 3 plates here. They have a Rift Herald they could just drop to finish the turret off. But frankly, I don't think they necessarily even need to. They could use it mid more efficiently for money. They will just guarantee it here, though. And one of the things Courage has been doing really well is controlling a lot of vision, and some of this has been set up, of course, by Ilima on the top side of the map with just his regular ward totems, but there's topside vision here so clearly that they know Hambach isn't nearby. They can set up for these dives. They can look for these plays in these really thin windows of time. Bottom side as well, when Bull and Andil were pushed up, they had defensive wards behind them to know that Hambach, if he's coming, we can punish him. We're also pushed up while we have Courage nearby, which is why part of why Hambach died previously. The ward game here for Kwangdong Freaks' Challenger squad seems pretty good so far, and it's something we've actually ironically criticized Kwangdong's regular LCK team for, is their vision game. Not so much here in this first game for Kwangdong, though, in Challengers.
Yeah, it's looking pretty good, especially along that bottom side of the map. And now we do have Andil. Of course, he is the support, the support Ashe, just going out there, clearing some vision, and he's level 6, so he could potentially look for a setup even on the mid lane. You know, they've already kind of done their job in the bottom side, you know, up 20 CS. They've gotten a bunch of turret play gold for their Varus, stuff like this, so he can just look for other plays on the map as well if he wants to.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, this is really not getting any easier for Castle. It feels pretty bad to be him right now because Wukong just cannot be there. So it's straight up 1v1 that he is losing. He is down a full item at this point in time.
Yeah, it's really rough. Like, things are just not going to get easier.
But he has a Rise, so nice little gank that doesn't amount to too much, although we do have the root onto Ilima, and he just dashes over the wall. Imagine having 7 dashes and being Cassante and also dominating your lane.
Yeah,
that is the champion.
That was the punish play attempt for KT while they gave up Dragon, and it does not work. Ilima was flashless, so I understand the idea here is this is ambitious, the Ashe arrow. Not going to be any follow-up, but still some damage traded. I think that it was a good idea, once again, from KT. You have this Realm Warp, you have this Rise that's 30 CS ahead. He's trying to push out that early Rod of Ages. We're about to hit the 30-minute mark, or 13-minute mark, excuse me, so not quite
Whoa.
30. But you want to get that item as soon as possible here, but he's trying to deal with these waves. He's trying to maintain a lane advantage here, but isn't able to make impact elsewhere on the map. Unfortunately, it doesn't have that Rod of Ages yet, so one of the strongest champions in the game to actually get that item doesn't have it built yet, and he's just dealing with this this Ahri in the mid lane.
Yeah, he'll get there. It'll probably be like 14 and a half or 15 minutes. It's not quite what we saw in the Faker versus Deft series, where we saw a lot of early Rod of Ages. He's doing pretty well in terms of farms, so I think he should get there eventually, sometime soon, hopefully. Because he really is one of the only hopes for his team. So if he's not doing well, it's not going to feel good. But he's doing pretty well. As we are taking a look here once again at the bottom lane, we do have 6 seconds.
On these plates.
Down they go.
Down they go.
There's only 2 plates for the bottom lane.
Really curious to see what Ashe builds here, because we've seen a lot of different variations. We've seen the Umbroglaive Ashe, which I think is actually what he's going to build in this scenario. Feels really reminiscent of Senna support, where you're like, you know, okay, I'm going to build this early. Or it's not Senna support, but, you know, fasting Senna, right? Where you're kind of playing the support, you're fasting, but you get the Umbroglaive, and you clear all the vision. They've already had such a good vision game that if Ashe actually starts clearing wards for free all the time, everywhere, I just don't see how KT can play the game anymore. It's really nice parry there, but...
Yeah. Castle got his first item, right? He got his Divine Sunder, so he's having a much better time of actually trading against Ilima. Ilima can't just bully him forever now, so maybe a slight bit of hope here for the top lane, as Hambach also going to show himself, provide some support in terms of just showing his face and saying, okay, our top laner is safe for now.
Let's see where the first team fight that KT wants to take is now Rod of Ages is online for Feisty. You know, it's 2 Drake lead here. It's going to be Mountain Soul for Kwangdong Freaks, or Earth Soul as we call it here in Challengers. And, you know, taking a stand here in 2 minutes, probably not reasonable. I mean, Zeri is 30 CS behind, doesn't have her Mythic. It's a really awkward spot right now. And once you have Immortal Shield Bow too, you're not like, okay, now it's time. That's not really the spike you're looking for. And they've got good tools to set up a fight if Kwangdong Freaks overextend. But the problem is now you have the similar issue that you had in the bot lane for Hype in the mid lane. Bull is 2 levels ahead now, and he is just going to put the pressure on mid. And top turret doesn't exist, so a lot of Courage's job here is just going to be bodyguard for Bull and Andil, who just keep pushing these waves, keep putting the pressure on Hype, trying to cause him to lose more and more CS, stopping him from backing. Along with that comes this free second Rift Herald here. And KT's scaling game is good. It's a good scaling game, and you know, Chronicler always says, if Chronicler here, I can imagine him, he's watching him, he's like, oh, Wolf doesn't know, he thinks it's a huge lead, it's challengers. Yeah, I'm falling for it a little bit right now, Chronicler. I'm falling for it a little bit. I feel like this game is starting to look very, very doomed if KT can't make a stand here, at least by the Soul fight, because Soul Point seems like a pipe dream at this point.
But knowing that it is challengers, of course, we could see Kwangdong Freaks somehow get themselves in a rough spot around that big objective, and then all of a sudden, Zeri pops off, and we have another Zeri moment. It was pretty funny yesterday when Chronicler was like, I don't know, I don't think that's a Zeri moment. I'm like, no, that's a Zeri moment, man. Like, she got a penta. Like, so this is the Zeri moment.
Okay,
this is the definition.
I've been kind of misquoted a few times on what a Zeri moment is. The Zeri moment actually is, okay, just to put it on record here, is when the Zeri gets 2 or 3 kills in the mid game and then becomes unstoppable. So if it's a pentakill and she's already like 4 kills up and she gets penta after that, in my opinion, that's not a Zeri moment because she already had.
Should have already happened. Yeah.
Okay, Courage here, taking some damage.
Yeah, Facey, you know, trying to really exude some confidence in terms of the way he's positioning. You know, trying to, you know, don't take down our wards. I'm pretty powerful, but to be honest, at this moment, he's the only one. So he's doing a pretty good job himself, but I think it is a little bit of, you know, it's not real. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's trying to show off a lot of confidence. He's going to the club. He's got his popped collar, but actually, he's not actually that cool of a guy. He's not that confident.
It's his dad's money.
Yeah, exactly. You know, because it's only him as well. Like, now Hambach's like, I can do this too. No, you can't. Like, you're dead. He's got slowed here by the Ash Hour. Now he's going to get charmed. So now he's dead, and we've entered 5v5 territory, and we're seeing that if KT want to fight now in 5v5s without their Fiora, who shouldn't be here, they're not going to have a good time, especially if Hambach gets out of position again.
The Fiora who's on a husk of a turret in the top lane right now as well. It's not like Fiora's like, all right, cool, you guys got that down there. I'm pushing top turret. She's just cleaning up the pieces. Still going to push forward here. Will be caught, of course, by Illima now, and we'll have the opportunity to get away. The crazy thing about this is the neutral fight for, well, I guess we'll watch this happen first.
Yeah, we do have a bit of an ult scenario, but the Grand Challenge is here. Their post is in as well. Castle handling this pretty well. He also had Rebel, who was pushing in from behind just in case he needed a little bit of support, and that means that Illima is just going to back away.
Well played by Castle there. Really nice timing on the Grand Challenge, and abusing the, you know, Illima's ult there when he's a little bit more vulnerable, even though he does tons of damage. But what I was going to say about that neutral fight for the Drake is both the Chains of Corruption and the Ash Arrow missed, but they still had a Herald. They still had, you know, prime position on the Drake with a lot of pick potential in this composition with insane range advantage. And so KT kept being like you said, I'm going in. Oh, I lost half my health bars because that's what Varus Ash will do to you. And then Hambach was like, all right, maybe I set up for an ult. Nah, you had to bail early, and I think the some of the decision-making on this new KT Rollster Challengers roster isn't quite there yet. Still figuring out how they're going to do these calls, because I think if the call was a little bit more universal, they would have been set up to try to threaten the bottom part of the Drake instead so that Fiora could have had a stronger push. But they kind of funneled through this choke point, and we all know what happened.
Yeah, it's kind of rough because, like, somebody's got to do it, and generally it's the jungler's job to try to clear out vision, try to get position for your team so maybe you can get fights. It was just that, you know, he was a little bit too far up, and I think a little bit of, you know, maybe frustration, maybe inexperience, you know, Don't often see a lot of LCK junglers get caught there. You know, if they're behind, they'll just be like, okay, we're behind. You know, if I'm going to go in, I need to go with my team or with my support at least. You know, we go in as a duo. We clear out, you know, maybe 1 or 2 wards. That's it. He kind of overstayed his welcome. Don't want to harp on him a little bit, but that is just the way it kind of went, because it did mean that Kwangdong got a free Drake, and now they are 5,000 gold ahead. And they're doing pretty well in terms of, you know, snowballing this lead. Like, it's not totally out of control, but still feeling a little bit helpless for KT at this moment in time.
Yeah, it just doesn't get easier. And you know, one of the late game win conditions we've talked about, besides the Zeri, which is the one that really sticks out at you, is just the fact that they have a great 1-3-1 comp, right, with the Fiora, with the Ryze, but with the amount of pressure they're facing in all 3 lanes, oh no.
Oh no. Where's the Ahri, though? If they had Cleaver there, it's just a charm, and he's probably dead.
Close call.
Yeah, but he'll get that back in like 10 seconds,
yeah.
So it's fine.
But look at where Ryze and Fiora are. They are 1-3-1ing under inner turrets. So you know it's still a ways away before KT are going to have enough control to where they can put the threat on. You could see Castle is willing to tussle with Illima a little bit here, but he knows that without vision, without backup, whenever Courage is missing, it's not a true 1v1. And also, especially when Cleaver is missing as well, like, he could get charmed. That could be the end of the fight. So, needs so much more with him to actually try to take Illima on. And it's just not feasible at this point in time. So, if we're talking about what happens in 10 minutes, right now, with it already being a 5,000 gold lead, it just doesn't seem optimistic, considering in 1:45, that crucial Mountain Soul fight is going to happen. So KT need to be ready to fight for that, or at least be able to say, you get this and we get something else. But it doesn't seem like either of those things are likely to happen.
Yeah, not at the current moment. You saw that we did have Feisty making his way over to the side lane to maybe do one of those Ryze ganks that we have seen before and try to bait Illima into a fight. But Illima very intelligently just backs away. He's like, well, we have a lot of vision. I don't see them anywhere else. Where could they be? And Chronicler was talking a little bit yesterday about how split pushing doesn't really exist, and that was a pretty defining moment in the finals of Challengers League last year. And I was pretty surprised to see KT go for somewhat of a difficult composition to pilot in game number 1 of the 2023 season. But we'll see if they can make it happen, as okay, Rebel's dead, but we do have this fight on the bottom side as Illima, again, he's Cassante. So it's very difficult to make this happen. This is the second time they have tried this. And meanwhile, Rebel kind of unfortunately got caught out in the mid lane, so they lose a lot of, you know, long-term chase potential. They're not able to kill him quickly. And it's another kill for the side of Kwangdong.
And Cleaver has teleport, so he pinged, I'm going to push inner turret here, top side, because the wave is crashing through. And he's going to at least force Castle to come up here and respond to this. He can come down and teleport to the Drake, where they already have complete control. And Illima's ult being down for this is somewhat of a problem, but when you have so many other ways to get picks here onto the vulnerable Zeri, doesn't matter as much as Hambach's ult being down for this is massive.
Oh no! Oh, he's not going to die, and the Ash Arrow does go through as Cleaver. He's got a lot of potential to make this happen, but with the teleport coming in, Kwangdong will actually respect that. You know, there's a lot of low health bars on the side of Kwangdong. They say, we don't have to take this fight. It's a very important moment in the game right before this Earth Soul is coming up here. And Kwangdong, you know, they get poked out a little bit. KT did find some angles early on, and that was a prime position to get Zeri there. So they say, you know what, let's just back away from it.
With Phantom Dancer online for Zeri, that's when she starts to really just chew through those medium health bar champions and just kind of kite around. Very difficult to lock down with those ults down. Cleaver already using his and teleporting through, but they're going to come over and contest with their health bars now. They slowed this down enough.
Yeah, Kwangdong not out of this yet. Take a look at Castle. He is now out of the fight. Boris is doing insane amounts of damage. Hambach at least is able to secure the objective, and I think they'll be happy to just sacrifice Hanbach. We'll see if he can get away here. No, the charm over the wall, and he is going to go down. So they have prevented the soul. Let's see if Kwangdong want to make their way to the Baron. They have a really nice chance here. They've taken out 2 members of KT, and it looks like they are sidling the right over to that objective.
Yeah, knowing that there are no turrets out, no outer turrets up, they have 3, you know, relatively strong waves pushing through. The bot wave's going to push. Top is not completely under the control, but they know mid is there. They know everyone on KT had to back there after that, and there's no jungler, so with the speed boost they also get from the Scuttle Crab that's on the Drake itself, they can get to this Baron very quickly. We're looking at a 2.5 item Varus. And it's, you know, Ashe support, so you rush this one down pretty quickly, and there's just no contest here, unfortunately, for the side of KT's challengers.
Yeah. If we take a look at the replay, oh, here it is. Take a look at Castle's health bar.
Yeah.
look at the Varus. Like, he doesn't exist anymore. It was just like 3 autos and 1 Q. That's it. And then he died.
And Hambach is able to survive this because he was being watched by Rebel. And Rebel's like, all right, I'm going to make sure. Yeah, Rebel. I don't know why he changed his name like that. I'm going to have to ask
I like
him.
his new name, actually. It's very sophisticated.
But he was watching him, right? But he wasn't in position to actually potentially set up for a wild growth onto Castle to turn that one around. He just wanted to make sure he could set up for Hambach. He's got the knock-up, and he wants to make sure he gets the Drake as, uh-oh.
Now, if they can blow up Bull, they actually have a pretty good chance. I mean, yes, the support... okay, they know exactly what's going on. Really nice read there from the side of Kwangdong. Don't think they saw this at all. I think it was pretty nicely set up gank brush, and they just read the play. So Kwangdong not going to get caught out here. They have a lot of vision with this Ashe support as well, so they see them back away. And from here on out, this next fight is going to be game-changing because, you know, this Baron push is going to be nice, but I don't think Kwangdong can kind of end off of this unless KT make a big mistake. So they really need to get this Earth Soul if possible.
Yeah. Very critical. I mean, the scaling timer is ticking to a certain extent here for KT, but I mean, got to be able to set up for a fight somehow, some way, and KT are just grouping to siege these objectives, which are inner turrets at this stage, and if somebody gets picked, that's the end of it. You know, you could lose the game right here at 28 minutes, and that's what they're looking for. Like, okay, you make one false move, we'll pick you and win the game. If you don't make any move, then we will just chip away at your inhibitor turrets now with these double cannon minions in the bot lane and a second one coming up in mid. It's just a zero-sum game here for KT at the moment, unfortunately.
Yeah, they're just hanging out. They're just hoping that Zeri can eventually pop off, but they're going to have to pay a pretty big price for it because they can't fight now. They're going to lose 2 inhibitors. Okay, they're just going to go in. Here we go. Hambach is behind them. But really nice positioning here from the side of Kwangdong. They're able to get a nice Lee Sin kick, who he eventually does go down to some insane Fiora damage. This Lulu is getting so much value in this game. And now the root comes in. Illima left a little bit out to dry. The chase is on. The poke and the volleys from the side of Kwangdong are very annoying, but Castle's got a very nice angle here. As Illima's oh no! He went all the way over the wall. Very unfortunate that Cassante was let through here. That's going to be 2 more kills to the side of Kwangdong Freaks as they make a very nice play out of this. And now we've got to teleport into the base, Wolf.
Jet set Cassante future. He's like, oh, you got that Zeri dash, you know? How about, what if I show you what Cassante could do with that with a wall? Let's get max range on this one. And,
yeah. There's nothing else to say about that.
You want to flank? You want to flank over there? Or what if I just really put you on a flank? What if we just max that flank out? Let's send you all the way to the other side.
Yeah.
Kwangdong Freaks, great vision game here, really playing their objectives extremely well. Despite Cleaver having a fairly weak laning phase, he did great in the mid game, and so I mean that's good enough, right? In a Rise matchup like this,
he basically just had to be there to set up more kills for his team. You know, to just put on pressure. He got behind in the lane, but he didn't die. You know, I think that's a great point you make, Wolf. He essentially is doing his job. He is a role player in this game. The other lanes won, and he is a charm bot a little bit, but sometimes that's what you do. Sometimes you pop off and you're the carry. Yeah. That's Varus things, you know. We do have Earth Soul about to be killed here, it looks like. Doesn't look like KT is going to challenge this one, especially with their base in tatters.
Yeah, I really thought that Kwangdong was just going to end the game, but they don't want to take any unnecessary risks here, and so the game does continue in some ways.
In theory.
Almost a formality here, but KT, if they could just get like one side lane angle, right? One trap they could set up, because they have a Wukong, right? One of the cool things about having Wukong with a 1-3-1 is when the enemy team comes to chase the side laner, we talked about this a little bit after draft, Wukong can shut down 3 members trying to chase because he can knock them all up a second time, then you could turn that fight, you know, or you can allow enough time to escape while your other side laner gets a turret on the opposite side of the map, for example. But they have just had so much deep control and deep vision that Hambak has had no agency this game. He's extremely behind him. He's sitting on 1 item right now in a stopwatch. And all of Twitch chat's thoughts and prayers. Because there's just not much he could do. And the fact that the top turret still stands at 30 minutes, 31 minutes with Castle on this Fiora, I think really tells the story of this game, unfortunately.
Yeah, it really does. I think that, funnily enough, now the onus is on Kwangdong to not make any mistakes, because we're 31 minutes into the game, right? And this game is essentially in their pocket. But the question is, will they get it pickpocketed out? Will they get it stolen away? Because, you know, the scaling timer is up. We have 3 items for the Rise. The Zeri, you know, doesn't quite have IE or anything like that, but could make some plays as, well, I say that, and she is just dead. Goodbye to the Zeri. The Rise still here, though. Facey doing some incredible damage, but the poke is just a little bit too much on the side of Kwangdong. You see the damage coming out is pretty insane, and now they just back away. They did not break the camel's back with that one, but they certainly did a pretty good dent.
They also bought enough space for the minions to take out another Nexus turret there on the bottom side as TP comes through. And I think now they're looking to break the back.
Imagine trying to kill Cassante.
Yeah.
What are you even thinking? The riposte is down, so the Ash Arrow finally going to hit here, and that is going to be the end of game number 1. Looks like 13-1 will be the score in the kills. Kwangdong pretty much in control from beginning to end. There was that one kind of close moment when they were pushing into the base, but other than that, it was pretty much on their plate the entire time, and they had a delicious dinner in the form of game number 1.
I really think this was one of our rare examples so far out of the now 3.5 series we've watched of big draft diff, but the execution I think was really good here for Kwangdong Freaks. They got all the top tier champions they wanted and then used the composition to its full potential early on, controlled the wards, and I mean, yeah, this is a one-sided game. Yes, 32-minute one-sided game, but it was one-sided, as you say, the whole way through.
Yeah, I definitely saw my fair share of resident sleepers in the chat, and I kind of understand because KT couldn't do anything, right? They were like, okay, we need to wait for Kwangdong to push, and maybe they'll make a mistake, maybe Zeri pops off. But take a look at this. I mean,
5K
Hanbok,
damage.
We said that Hanbok couldn't do anything. Take a look at the Zeri. Like, she didn't even exist. Like, if your 80 carry's doing that, you might as well have just drafted, like, a Ziggs or something, you know, because at least that would have done something.
Yeah.
Like, Hype was very... I'm sorry, but he wasn't very hyped this game.
He didn't
have a chance.
We have seen a lot of Heimerdinger in response to the Varus. We've seen just a lot of Heimerdinger in general. We've seen Heimerdinger and Varus as a duo. I think that could have been a better option, but they really wanted the Lulu for their team composition, and it was unfortunately just not successful this time around.
Yeah, you'll see that it is going to be Illima, in fact, who does pick up the player of the game. He did not. We
didn't vote, Valdez.
Oh no, we forgot to vote. Oh, that's unfortunate.
It's our first time.
We're new. Somebody came into the room. I'm like, what?
She was trying to tell us to vote, and it's our fault.
Yeah,
we are terrible.
It's okay. Sorry.
Fired.
Next game we'll get in here, or maybe Atlas and Chronicler will be sitting here. But yeah, not a single kill for Illima, but he did quite a lot of Cassante things, Wolf. This champ is pretty insane in the hands of pro players.
He did so well with the side lane management, escaped so many deaths because of his really good mechanics, dashing through the wall twice, getting over obstacles without flash, escaping realm warp ganks. He was just super slippery. I think another big contender would have, of course, been Bull on the Varus. Just had great poke damage all game long, but yeah, my vote probably would have gone to Illima as well.
Yes. Probably him or... I don't know, Varus for poking a lot and doing a lot of damage, right? But certainly Illima was setting up a ton of the plays. But that was game number 1, guys. A very one-sided affair. We'll see if KT has a chance to come back in game number 2, or if Kwangdong are just going to continue looking just as strong as they have been. We'll be right back after this break. Hello and welcome back to Challenger League. Here it is me, Valdez, with Wolf, and that game number 1 was an Omega Stomp, as Kwangdong Freaks really took it to them very early on with a pretty aggressive lineup, and they essentially won every lane and then ended the game. Wolf, you think KT can pull it back here for game 2?
Well, you and I talked about it a little bit, obviously, in the cast, and we talked about it in that short break. It just really does feel like KT's draft was a big problem, and I didn't want to highlight it too much when we were casting because it's like, okay, it's challengers, new teams, whatever, and anything can happen. Like, I want to believe in the Chronicler rule, you know, the Chronicler's golden rule of like, you think it's over, but trust me, it's not. In this case, it ended up being over, but I think the draft had some critical elements that could have worked out, like I was talking about with the side laning. But when you're just that far behind and the Zeri can't do anything, and there was like one team fight where she was like, oh, I might do something, and then I was like, no, it's not going to happen. It's rough. And I think that I don't want to say if we knew these teams really well and we knew like, okay, Kwangdong is the way better team, I'd be like, yeah, it seems like it might be an easy 2-0. I don't want to say that yet because I think if KT has a better draft, if they pick blue side here and get some prio picks, like maybe we see a completely different game too.
Yeah, we did see some red side picking, but I kind of agree with you. Maybe KT chooses blue side, they try to get some more prio in some of the lanes, and they actually try to fight on their own territory rather than deciding, you know, we're just going to kind of lose every lane and go from there and see if we can pull it back. Like, nice challenge you gave to yourself, but I don't think that's really a recipe for success, especially against a team like Kwangdong who are looking pretty strong. You know, you were talking about like a couple things. The challengers rule where it's like it's not over until it's over. Like there was that one moment where they nearly got flanked by the Ryze ulted Wukong behind them, but they handled that really well. Like there are two playmakers of Illima and what's his face in the jungle, Courage, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of C names here, and a lot of new names as well. They did a really good job of kind of just like reframing the fight. They're like, okay, well, Wukong's behind us, so let's move over this way. They got the pick onto Hype, and then it was kind of over from there. So, yeah, I feel like they did a pretty good job of not letting anything kind of get in their way or let it be a challenger's rule in this game 1.
Yeah, avoid that challenger's rule. By the way, Twitch chat, let's keep up the positivity. Valdez and I are taking a peek every now and then, and we went. This is a brand new Twitch channel, LCK Global 2023, and we went from like 50 followers to 1,000 yesterday. Let's see if we can get that up to like 1,500 today, maybe even 2,000. So follow the channel. I know a lot of people are just discovering that we're doing English broadcast yesterday, and like, oh, I missed it. I saw a lot of tweets like, damn, I can't believe I missed this. Follow the channel. We're on YouTube as well. You can find us there at LCK CL Global. So if you want to watch on YouTube, if that's your thing, check it out. But follow the channel and keep up the positivity in the chat. We love you guys.
And a little bit different from LCK, we actually have the chat open pretty much the entire time. So if you guys have interesting points you want to make about the game, we will see that. We can choose to respond to or not. If you want to be a little bit of a bonehead in the chat, you know, we see you as well, but that's okay. Hello, Cubby. Welcome to the stream.
What's up, Cubby?
And welcome everybody else as well. KT did select blue side.
That's right.
So it feels like this is kind of going according to what we kind of read from Game 1, Wolf.
Well, when we've had a lot of Varus bans, right? And when you have the Varus ban, you feel like, okay, we can handshake the Sivir Zeri a lot of the time, or you ban both, and then we go down the rabbit hole a little bit more. Like we've seen some Lucian sometimes make it through. We've seen a little bit of a Aphelios, but when you have blue side and you get that Varus first pick, you get that level 3 that we were talking about, where you invade the blue buff, you look for a dive. We saw it with D+ Kia yesterday with the Elise, this time with the Lee Sin. It's really tough for the enemy jungler to compete with that without losing a ton in general. And even with the kind of nerfs to invades and jungles, it's still very frustrating to deal with. Like, it's not going to save you. That little bit of extra damage per auto is not going to actually be the difference maker.
Especially if you're a Lee Sin and you have 2.5 winning lanes. You know? You're gonna have a very fun time. And Cards certainly did in that first game. Cassante, so far, he is 100% pick rate. He has not been banned even once just yet at Challengers, so it's kind of that one champ that's really on the cusp of potentially being banned, but hasn't been so far because there are so many other strong picks that you kind of have to ban. So we get to have a lot of, you know, Cassante moments, I suppose you could call them. Will we have more this time? Maybe Castle gets his hands on that champ this time and gets to give Ilima a taste of his own medicine.
Well, it looks like they're not planning on running the Varus Ashe themselves, as they will remove it straight off the bat. The Lucian ban here does kind of tell me Kwangdong are hoping that it is going to be something like a Cassante first pick. Maybe they'll grab the Zeri, have a free lane for Bull. And we might get to see a different look here for Kwangdong Freaks, where they're playing the scaling game. As, you know, Sivir Zeri is one of the things that a lot of people roll their eyes at because it's so similar to what we watched, of course, in summer. But, I mean, the meta right now for me is very fluid. I'm actually very excited because we have Cassante, and I know he's pretty broken. There's a lot of people rolling their eyes at him as well. But I think because he exists, the meta still feels very fluid in terms of the mid lane. There's a lot of viable picks down. The bot lane is, yes, a lot of Sivir Zeri, but way more picks than we had just a few months ago. So I still think it's a good step in the right direction. Would we like more? I mean, yes, but
for sure,
one step in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that just coming off of Worlds as well, like I know at this point it has been, you know, a good 2-3 months, but you know, that was one of the best metas we had because there were so many picks that you could go for. The meta wasn't, you know, hard to find or anything like that. So I think we're coming off a little bit of that. There are a lot of different picks you can go for. There's always going to be really strong stuff, but eventually the teams will figure it out, and we will continue to hopefully develop this very fun meta as Cassante will go through once again, but we did have the Ashe band, we had the Karma band, the Yuumi, the Heimerdinger, a lot of things that could really devastate the bottom lane, but Maokai does get through.
Maokai is really strong right now for a plethora of reasons. He has, as Chronicle pointed out very well yesterday, a ton of builds he can do. He also has, you know, basically point and click to lock down Zeri. And he got popular after Zeri was nerfed going into Worlds, so that was not really a common Zeri counter before. It was like more like the Nautilus point and click to lock her down. Vi. And now you have this Maokai pick coming through here, blind, where your draft is still pretty open-ended. It seemed pretty clear from the Heimerdinger and the Lucian bans here that Kwangdong Freaks were hoping to get their hands on a scaling AD carry, the Zeri or the Sivir. If Zeri was first picked, they're like, okay, we'll handshake the Sivir. Let's see if KT want to take the Sivir themselves, or if they still want to play this Varus lane despite not having the Ashe nor the Heimer. It looks like that's the case.
Yeah, Varus still strong in his own right. Doesn't get to be insanely frustrating like Varus Ashe, but still pretty frustrating. And then there's that Nautilus you were talking about. You know, they banned the Vi themselves. They banned a lot of supports that could support the Zeri that are not Lulu. Lulu does make it through. You can't ban literally everything. So Lulu pretty good, especially in later game team fights, but still you would have to imagine that KT's bottom lane this time is going to be the more dominant one.
Yeah, you have to think so. And for Courage, this time he's playing a very different champion in the Sejuani. It does have a little bit more long-range setup, but there isn't a whole lot to pair with it just yet, except his own body with the Lulu knockup. As we'll see Ryze removed here. Sylas also gone. When you see the Ryze ban, you think, okay, they might be thinking about Sylas. I did see Nymera tweet this out, and it's so true. Based on what we've seen in the LPL so far, the main pro league that's been happening, the one pick that isn't there like it was in summer, the one missing one is the Sylas. Like, he's no longer just 100% like first pick. You can blind him. He's a little bit more niche now, and I think that's cool to see. It's definitely a trend we've noticed, but without the Ryze, does get a little bit stronger, so that's banned away.
Yeah, it's very good into the Nautilus as well. I mean, already a lot of strong ultimates that he could have stolen away. As Cassante makes it through, you know, the Akali ban, the Sylas, I get it. The Akali ban, I'm like, I don't know. I feel like that could have been our one moments to actually ban away Cassante, but it feels like KT doesn't really care about that champ. They're like, okay, go ahead, Illima, you can play Cassante again. And what is going to be the choice here?
We'll see Castle on the Renekton. He's played a ton of Renekton throughout his career. I've seen so many of his Challengers games where he's played it. I know he's very good at it. And we do see the Syndra coming through, so that's one of the other picks that's kind of risen to popularity with her mid-scope update, as Yone will be the answer here to the Syndra. So this one's going to get fun. This one's going to get interesting. And I think the draft was like on the precipice of, okay, could just be scaling mid. We're playing full scaling. Like Azir's still open, Victor's still open. You know, we could just sit back and play it. Kassadin. Like, we were on the edge of that, and then Quantum Freaks just said absolutely not, and just put the Yone and just slammed it on the table and said, nope. Now we have a strong mid game. We still have some scaling aspects, but it's going to be a very different game here for the Varus and the Syndra. So much more vulnerable in these mid game fights.
Yeah. And this time, I think KT really needs to up the tempo themselves a little bit early on. You know, they have Renekton and Maokai. You can make some big plays with that. Even Maokai and Syndra can make some plays. Maokai is going to potentially, you know, Hambach's going to have his moment in the sun to potentially get some stuff done. But we'll see how that goes. And Cleaver gets to drop the gauntlet and say, well, I got, you know, a little bit dominated in the lane in game number 1. Let's see what I can do on a little bit of a carry pick with the Yone coming out here against the Syndra.
I think the Maokai in this game really feels very awkward in that he can set up a lot of CC onto Bull potentially, but there's so much peel that's very difficult to actually lock him down. I think Hambach is often going to be one of the first targets if he's trying to set up that CC, and will probably be blown up because there's just so much damage on the side of Kwangdong Freaks. Illima ults can pull Hambach out of the fight, can pull Renekton out of the fight super easily, and then Zeri has so much free space. Feisty here going to really have to hit those Scatter the Weaks consistently, and if they can win, I think the tank battle with that Varus poke, again, very difficult to do because this is such a tanky front line. I think KT can front to back, but the longer these fights go, man, the harder it gets.
Yeah, well, it looks like we are ready for game number 2. Let's hop onto the Rift right now. And here we are once again, Wolf.
Yeah.
Onto the Rift.
We see you, Twitch chat. I did see someone asked us what our favorite Animal Crossing villagers were. I know Valdez is not a big crosser.
Not a crosser myself.
I just saw that question. I wanted to answer it because obviously mine's Lobo, the wolf. That's all.
Yeah, that sounds pretty nice.
He's great.
What characteristics does Lobo have?
He's a grumpy villager, so he's
very...
Yeah, it's just like me. He's very friendly to those he likes, but he takes a little while to warm up to you, and he's very skeptical.
Interesting.
But yeah, someone also asked if Feisty was on Bro last year. That is correct. He was. He's moved to KT's Challengers
Feisty,
team.
Lupin, Gamin.
Yep.
Not anymore. They have broken up. Unfortunate, but yeah, I was talking to you in the break a little bit, Wolf. It does feel like Feisty is kind of on his own, but it may just have been a little bit of a draft situation. So hopefully he gets a little bit more support from his team, as he will not be the only potentially winning lane in this one. And I was talking about how this bottom lane should be good for the side of KT, but you know, with the Lulu being ranged against Nautilus, especially early on in the earlier levels, definitely is a little bit of room, at least for the Zeri to farm more than she did in game number 1.
Yeah.
So that's pretty nice as well.
Oops. Sometimes you just accidentally aggro the the Raptors.
He's trying to get his, he's trying to charge up a little bit.
Yeah, grab that extra knock up. But like, one of the interesting things about how this bottom lane is changed is the rune choice for Hype here. He's gone for Lethal Tempo, isn't going to go in Hail of Blades, and that just tells you how this this bot lane is going to be played out differently. And you see the Glacial Augment to try to help set up for some extra damage here to proc that Lethal Tempo, but as you say, the range damage here from Ondil is trading it back big time, and Feisty may get punished.
Oh boy, he is going to actually scatter the boar, and it worked out really well, because had he gotten the freeze down, there was actually potential. But Feisty's flash is going to be down, traded with Courage's flash. I think that's definitely a very nice win for the side of Kwangdong Freaks. It's going to open up Cleaver to actually have a little bit of a safer and more farmable lane in the mid lane.
Yeah, when he hits level 6, you know, there's some kill potential there. Courage to go Hex Flash, so has the ability to engage from a long way away. And, okay, we're just seeing these hooks land on cooldown here for Rebel.
He's actually getting in there. Ondil has to flash away. He was ticking down from the Ignite as well. So, you know, again, with the range early on, you can do a nice job of, wow, okay, he is going to shield that damage. You can do a nice job of harassing the Nautilus, but if you get hooked over and over, quickly the Varus will begin to take over this lane.
Yeah. I mean, notice how much mana Rebel has as well. And it's very mana efficient the way he's trying to do this.
Rebel.
Because, yeah, sorry. Well, I think it's still Rebel. I think you just decided to spell it different, all right? Stop trolling me, Valdez!
I just want to call
I'm
him
actually
Rebel.
low-key a big Rebel fan. I don't like that he changed his name, though.
It's okay. He's still a great player.
Fun fact, it's not that fun, but it's like, you know, mildly interesting.
You say like a 4 out of 10?
Yeah, it's like a 4 out of 10 fact.
Okay.
Rebel, one of the first players I ever commentated in League of Legends when
That's
he played.
a pretty fun fact.
Yeah, he played for KT in the Kespa Cup in 2021.
Wow.
That was really exciting for me, and I
was actually saying wow at the Hex Flash. Sorry,
Oh.
Wolf, but
yeah.
that was a really nice. I don't think I've ever seen that angle
sometimes
used.
Sometimes you hit the angles.
Yeah, he's able to avoid the Scuttle Crab. As okay, Ondil is just going to die here. He's going to be last hit by Rebel, and it looks like Feisty is able to get away from this gank in the mid lane. So a couple of wins to the side of KT, and now Courage is in a little bit of trouble. Runs straight into a tree. They're trying to trade this onto Feisty, but I don't think that Cleaver has the damage quite yet, as he is just on the one dagger in terms of damage. So really nicely set up this time from KT.
Yeah. Okay, Cleaver.
And he's just gonna die. Excellent roam from Rebel, one of the first people that Wolf casted in his League of Legends career.
Yes.
Comes in and makes a statement in the mid lane.
Yeah, so already picked up a kill and an assist. Okay, 2 assists to Feisty here in this early game into the Yone matchup. Obviously, Syndra, one of Syndra's greatest strengths, you know, before her mid-scope update and after, it doesn't matter. Like, this is not a change to her kit. Is that she harasses melee champions very well. She harasses ranged champions very well. She's one of the soft
lane
counters
presence.
to Quirky, yeah. And, putting that harassment onto Cleaver, and I think the idea there for Courage is, okay, we're going to try to turn this one around. The problem is Hambach is here, and this is just really greedy. And look at Cleaver. He's level 5, but he's not even really close to 6. If he's close to 6 or hitting 6 here, this play actually becomes a lot more feasible because he can buy a ton of time with his ultimate there, stack those knockups, and then maybe turn that one around, but ends up being pretty disastrous for him as a result. And now he's even further away from 6 as Feisty has hit his already.
Yeah, Courage was trying really desperately to get his mid laner ahead, and it actually ended up backfiring. So It'll be curious to see if Kwangdong can win from this position. You know, it's easy to win when you have all the winning lanes and everything's going well for you. Your Lee Sin can do whatever he wants, but can Courage actually play from behind in this situation against a 2-0 Maokai that already has Giants belt? I'd say the answer is probably going to be no, but we'll see how this game does turn out, as KT also going to be picking up this first Drake, the Ocean Drake, as now Illima having a little bit more trouble in this lane against the Renekton, not quite the same as the Fiora early on.
Yeah, Castle's a really good Renekton player, and they don't trade ultimates here or anything like that, just putting the pressure on, using his cooldowns and his rage bar really efficiently, and just has a nice trade here. And Illima, unfortunately, is just going to have to back away. He's already teleported, so it's going to actually take a bit of time to get back to lane. Can use his charge to speed that one up a little bit, but you don't get much out of it. The Varus in the bottom lane, not getting the same lead that we saw from Bull last game, but that was obviously a very different situation where they had the early level 3 dive work out extremely well. This Castle's just going to proxy, looking for extra plate gold, and very night and day here for Illima when Castle's playing a champion. It looks like he's much more comfortable on than the Fiora. Oh, might miss that plate though.
Yeah.
Rip.
Yeah, kind of curious that he doesn't stick around for that one. He did deny the cannon from what it looked like, but I mean, Cassante is just going to build tanky items and kind of do whatever he wants eventually. So I think just trying to get as far ahead as possible would have been pretty nice. So he does miss a couple of things there, unfortunately, but he gets a very, very nice back timing, which is probably what he was going for. Doesn't have that first item just yet, just the whip. As now we have Bull and Allendale making their way to mid lane. Very interesting here, maybe wanting to fight over this Rift Herald when they're down 2,500 gold at 8 minutes into the game. I would not recommend that one, Wolf. I don't think that's a good idea.
Nope. Risky call, risky call. Bull getting some free farm down here, and I think that this is probably the way you want to play this as Kwangdong Freaks, is just simply have some presence in mid so that you could maybe catch a straggler. And I think Hype going up, while I understand the decision because you really want to snowball your lead further, I think probably could have been utilized a little bit better because he didn't actually put pressure on in mid that much to try to clear the wave. He kind of just rotated towards it and then came back down. He's not going to miss too much money, if any at all, here in the bottom lane. Okay, Hex Flash in here from Rebel. Oh, looks like he considered it.
What?
That would have been cool. Yeah. And I gotta just eat my words and be like, okay, no, he's super smart, 5-head play.
I mean, you've got like all these summoners available on Hype as well. I feel like they had a pretty nice angle, but maybe they didn't know exactly. Like, they don't have a lot of vision down on the bottom side. Like, who knows? Maybe Courage is being cheeky and just sitting in the lane or something. So he's just gonna back.
I think also, like, even with the Hex Flash, he just barely was out of range of Bull with the ultimate. So and Bull has Cleanse and Flash, so he just decides, you know, like you said, not worth the risk, but it would have been really cool. He just flashes back instead. Meanwhile,
it's nice to see that Castle get some time to shine. It does look like we are potentially heading in the direction of a 1-1 scoreline. Still very early to call, of course, but Illima definitely having a harder time in this lane.
The last game we had a very early Drake take, so we were looking at Soul Point, you know, very early on in the game, and the Soul fight was very early, so the Zeri just didn't have time, in Hype's case, to really have those team fights the way he wanted to. I think Bull is in a similar but yet very different situation in that, yes, he's significantly behind, but not as behind, and the rest of his team hasn't fallen so drastically behind in terms of control that there's still a real world where Kwangdong Freaks, at the pace we're on, even if they give this Drake up, can make a real contest for that third one, and then look for that team fight, that Zeri moment, big swing back. Because this comp is great at mid-game team fighting. If Bull is there for the cleanup, Cleaver sets them up. They've got really good CC. Illima gets in the backline. Like, there are so many ways to kill this Varus. Okay.
Wow, they're actually trying to turn this onto the fed Maokai. Not sure about this. If they have the burst damage, they might get away from it. But Cleaver going in with the ultimate. He is so close. They finally get the darn Maokai. But what will they have to trade for it? As Cleaver nearly gets flash took, but Castle going to do a better job of locking that down. So 2 for 1 in favor of KT and a whole bunch of plates. Well, maybe just the 2. Still a very good trade up here for KT.
Yeah, one of the rules you learn oftentimes in a 5v5 League of Legends game is different from the solo queue is diving the Maokai is always a huge risk because you don't know what's on the other side. In this case, it's a Renekton coming over. Now, the idea here is good, but Hambak, as you say, is fed. He has an early Giant spell. It's kind of tanky, has his ultimate to lock you down, so it's a heavy commitment to this play. And with the Renekton rotating over with Flash, it ends up being a trade up here on the side of KT. You're looking for, okay, got my Yone ult. This is the time where we want to try to force these plays, but it actually comes back to bite Kwangdong Freaks just a little bit here. Successful play on one hand, but on the other hand, I think KT very happy with the result.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really cool to see KT just playing the map really well. You know, the top lane, you're winning that. Castle could just sit there and get all the plates as he might die here. Nice gank timing from the side of Cards. They're going to feed that kill over to Illima. Problem being that they're probably going to lose their mid turret here if KT decides to stick around. Looks like they might not, as we do have a little bit of a rotation up from the side of Kwangdong, as Ondil is just face-checking the Maokai. Not sure about this one, but actually it does look like KT does not want to go in. This is a very confusing position.
This is awkward.
As they do want to go onto the Zeri, and they just ignore the Lulu, essentially, but they do get the cleanse out of Bull. This is not half bad.
Yeah, no, I mean, Illima, if he had teleport, this would be amazing.
Uh-oh. I think this might be the end of Feisty here. He does have his flash, though, and actually has a lot of support coming in from the river, as KT was not quite cleared out of this place, as now Courage is going to bite the dust. Ondil not willing to flash Wild Growth or anything like that. There was a little bit too much pressure from the side of KT.
Wacky exchange, but at the end of the day, you know, this ends up being Kwangdong Freaks buying a ton of time on this dragon and almost taking Feisty out, right? Like, if that play ends up being a little bit more clean, if they actually rotate a little bit faster, they take Feisty out and get away, maybe you buy time on the Drake and grab a kill. Looks like they will, at least for the time being, keep this turret alive just for a few more moments here. Also, Illimo is free farming topside, didn't have TP to join the fight or anything like that. But what Kwangdong is doing is trying to play aggressively right now around other critical parts of the map than the objective itself to kind of pull KT around. And you could see KT kind of struggling a little bit there with the teamwork aspect when Hambak got dove on, his ultimate was used, and Kwangdong were like, well, if there's no Maokai ult, we can kind of hang around a little bit more because we actually aren't going to get locked down by that one. We can try to threaten a little bit more and then slow this one down. Buying even an extra minute of time here for the Zeri to farm is quite significant in this composition that has some really great scaling aspects to it.
Yeah. You'll note that Hype is going for just a straight-up, you know, auto-attacking. He's not going for lethality here on his Varus, so something you were talking about, Wolf, a little bit early on is actually beginning to come true.
Yeah.
Just going to be going into that auto-attack kind of build. Well, not the lethality, at least at this point in time. Going for the shield bow, he has lethal tempo, so might be able to deal with some of those tanks a little bit better.
I like this a lot, considering, you know, he's got an Alice support. There's a lot of ways for it to go very badly for him if he's just trying to play straight poke. He needs to survive and do consistent damage in these fights, and the Immortal Shield Bow can buy him a ton of time. You know, and he's got Flash. Of course, he's got a lot of peel with a Maokai ultimate and stuff like that. Yeah. you and your wows, man.
Wow.
But this one, I feel like last game I was like, all right, like remember the Chronicler rule, you know, but it does seem pretty over, and it ends up being that way. I feel like we're on the edge of a potential comeback here for Kwangdong if they can just keep staving off the pressure. Like, they've only lost their mid turret, you know, the bottom turret is not long for this world, but they've done such a great job at slowing down the pushes that KTF tried to set up here in the attempts for Syndra to look for a scatter kill, and Maokai was really fed and still is 3-1 and 2, but hasn't been able to be a terror on the Rift or anything like that. So I'm not saying Kwangdong are ahead. They're 5,000 gold behind, but I'm saying there's a chance. Like, Twitch is like, you saying there's a chance? I'm like, I'm saying there's a chance.
Wow.
That's all I'm saying, but I'm saying, like, it's not over till it's over, Valdez.
Yeah, this is Challenger League after all. You never know what's going to happen. One thing that has really stood out to me in this game is that, you know, Feisty looked great in Game 1. He looks great in Game 2. He's really consistent. He is a great player. He's winning this lane as well. Had some help from his friendly Hambak from the jungle. But he's ahead in CS. He has an item and a half already, 6 stacks on his Dark Seal. and he's just being so dominant. I love his movement around the map as well. You know, he's not just sticking in the mid lane, but he's putting on the pressure on Yone, and then he's going off of vision, just really putting pressure elsewhere on the map and being very annoying. Also great to see Castle go on one of his, you know, one of his big picks and make a big difference in this game as well. It looks like an entirely different game from game 1.
And with the mid-scope update, I always want to say rework, but it's a mid-scope update technically for Syndra. Facey going for the Leandries this time. In the past, you'd be like, okay, that's a little bit sus. Like, you can make it work, but it's a little bit hard to proc it. But with Scatter of the Week, you know, you have a pretty wide cone to actually apply that in this composition, and you really do want to eat through those tanks. He's also looks like building Shadow Flame here second, so he'll have some extra damage onto the Yone. So I like that this build, good versus tanks, pretty good versus squishies as well. He's going for a pretty nice set of flexibility with these two items, and if he can actually catch the Zeri at any point, that could be disastrous for Kwangdong Freaks, but the same goes for Cleaver. If he actually finds Cleaver in a bad spot and is able to do his combo, then ult him, it'll probably burn down, right? And with the lead that Facey has in terms of laning right now, you know, it's not massive, but it's significant enough with those Dark Steel Sacks, with all those assists he picked up, that he can even challenge, as you mentioned, Ilma in a side lane. He's like, yeah, I'm Syndra, I can poke you, I've got Scatter, I've got myself Peel. Like, you can't really ult me if you don't have vision control. Kwangdong this time does not have that. Notice all the wards that KT have on the top side of the map. It's really easy for Facey to make those map movements with the control they have, and KT definitely had some shaky moments this game, but I think overall, the draft, I think, our theory that the draft was the main reason why they had such a bad game 1 seems to kind of hold up here.
Yeah, pretty clearly. I mean, this is a wildly different look. All the players look great. Hambach is playing really well. This is why I'm just so happy we don't have best of ones anymore here in this league as well.
Get rid of all those best of the ones, or best of the ones. Best of the ones.
This is just a better format. We just get to see a lot more. League is a game where the draft can be pretty defining, and we saw that in game 1. We're seeing it be pretty defining here in game number 2 as well.
Imagine if football, both types, you know, American and otherwise, just didn't have, like, they just didn't swap sides. There's no halftime. It's like, nah, it's just a best of one, like one half, that's all.
Just one half.
Just one half. Oh, you guys got kickoff, sorry. It's just how it is.
Because the World Cup is, you know, it is best of one.
Yeah, but like,
but I see what you're saying.
Halves,
well,
right? Like, what if you were just like, oh, sorry, like they won the coin flip, they get kickoff, sorry.
Yeah, that wouldn't be fair. Yeah, that wouldn't make any sense.
Everyone hates when I make traditional sports analogies because I'm not a traditional sports person. I don't know how it works, but
yeah, I stick to the hockey analogies because that's what I know. Everything else is like, well.
What if there was only one period in hockey?
Yeah, there's only one period in hockey. You have to stay on the same side. I mean, that wouldn't. Hockey's a little bit different. There's not really a benefit to either side. Although in the second period you do swap sides, so you're farther away from your bench, so it's harder to change lines. So that's like the one thing. But yeah, nobody knows what I'm talking about in the Twitch chat.
I kind of know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
A little bit.
You know, a little bit. We haven't had too much happening here in this game. KT got ahead, and then Kwangdong was like, okay, you're ahead now. We need Yone to get items. We need Zeri to get items. And before that happens, we don't want to fight.
And it's been like, the lead has slowly increased at a fairly slow pace, but like significant enough to where it was like 4,000 gold lead now. It's a 6,000 gold lead. So it's getting bigger, but we still need to see KT win this team fight cleanly when they go to contest for the Wind Soul here. And if they can do that, if they can just set up a pick, kill the Zeri early and take that soul and take Baron, like, this game may be all locked up. But there's one more big chance here for Kwangdong as Zeri's second item comes online. Yone's second item comes online here. They're just going to try to start a Baron early here. Good vision clear from KT. Kwangdong Freaks, I think, pretty clearly know this is a possibility, but will they be able to react in time? Renekton is backing. Has TP. Castle can join into this fight.
I mean, their team fight is pretty strong. I mean, if they get all 5 members into position, KT do have to be careful, and very intelligently they will back off the Baron. There wasn't a lot of vision until the very end of that Baron being taken, but the safer play is to just back away. a lot less flippiness we're seeing in the first couple of days, I feel like, Wolf.
Yeah.
You think like the challenger teams maybe watched a bit of Worlds, learned a bit, and they're like, okay, I think we get this now.
Okay, Hambach though.
Well, he might get flipped here as he is just going to be potentially 100-0. No, he is just so tanky. He goes onto the Yone and then just flashes away. So they use everything onto the Fed tank Maokai. Why did you do that? I do not know. But they found a guy, they found a tree. He was very tasty. He looked very scrumptious, but in the end, he was just the bait.
He's got Radiant Virtue, and I mean, he looks like a good target here, but realistically, with his ultimate and the rest of the peel, yeah, he ain't. Now Syndra almost completely has the Dark Seal stacked. That's a Baron, and unfortunately for Kwangdong Freaks, like, you push them off the Baron, you're setting a trap because you want to get the Zeri. The Zeri so desperately needs money. Bull, look at his position here. It's really good on the other side of the wall. Can wall right in, but like, there's no good target for him. The target priority here is kind of all over the place for Kwangdong Freaks, except when it was all on Maokai, which was also not correct. And if he was skating around the other side of the team fight, they engage on the Maokai, then flip around. There's a different way to do this, but they really wanted to burst Hambach, but the rest of KT was so nearby. And what could have been a game-turning play for Kwangdong might have actually been the last nail in the coffin for them, unfortunately, because now Baron basically guarantees win soul here. And yeah, we're going to keep calling it that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's the name. Just look in the top left. Like, can't argue with that. And yeah, this Baron is going to be huge. I mean, this is a team that has incredible siege as well. I mean, even just throwing out a Maokai. Well, speaking of which, yeah, Illima, I think, you know, he is Cassante, but it might not matter. Oh, he is going to get wild growths here and actually survive, but he is no longer in the fight. So goodbye, Cassante. And they still have Baron buff and a Syndra and Ivaris. So they're just going to take the inhibitor here by force. And Kwangdong Freaks says, please take it away. We can't do anything about this. And you know what's interesting? I mean, there's not a lot of flippiness, I feel like, in these first couple of days, but there has been a lot of one team gets ahead and then they end the game at like 23 to 26 minutes.
The comeback stuff hasn't really been happening, right? And we did see a little bit of it in that first series yesterday, but
he's fine.
He's all right. He's all right. We really aren't seeing that many comebacks, so you're right. And I think a lot of this comes from, like you were saying earlier, these challenger teams really do seem to be focusing a lot on fundamentals in terms of vision control, wave management, stay ahead, don't overextend. And look, we have seen many moments, I don't think this was one of them, but we have seen many moments where it's like very clearly probably just kill the Nexus, but let's back away. In this case, I think they probably couldn't have killed the Nexus, but we have seen a lot of the restraint, as Chronicler said yesterday, the voice in your head telling you to do the thing, but you're like, I'm not going to do it. I really like how Chronicler put that yesterday. I think we're seeing a lot of that for the teams ahead, especially in this series, as KT look to close this one out. Now they have this Soul online. Maokai ult is back up. It's very difficult for Kwangdong to engage on this 2-item Zeri. 1.5 item Yone. Let's see what they can do. Okay, nice little angle here from Courage as the Casante's going to get in there as well. And the Yone ultimate gets onto that backline. Hype is just kiting everything out, though. And they finally do get the golden chest at the end of the dungeon, but it doesn't matter because they died at the end. And now Syndra's 5-0. Yone just doesn't have enough damage, you know? He doesn't have his second item online, and if he was Wild Growth instead of the Sejuani, I don't think it really changes anything here, to be honest.
GG.
GG?
That's going to be the end of this one. Let's remember to do our POG votes. I'm going to go ahead and circle Feisty. Don't we just put it on the paper?
I think we do it in the chat now.
Oh. Well, things are changing here in 2023. And yeah, KT is able to get the big win. And a really nicely done job. Totally different from the way Game 1 looked, and the drafts are being the biggest denominator, the biggest determination in terms of who is going to take the wins so far.
I think when you have two teams that are fairly evenly matched, it's not uncommon for that to be the case, right? Especially in a new meta where things are still kind of being figured out. 18,000 damage. Just to put this in perspective, the next highest damage is the Maokai at 7,776.
Of course.
He's a big Fire Emblem 5 fan, but no, this is kind of insane, this damage output. And the next highest on Kwangdong is the K'Sante. Both of our games have kind of been a stomp. The team that's losing is trying to just kill the minions, and then nothing happens. And so you see these damage numbers happen like this, and it's very reminiscent of solo queue. When you're falling behind and you're losing as an individual player, like, well, I don't want my team to get more mad at me. I'm just going to kill the minions and sit under a turret and not make the proactive play. And sometimes you kind of shut down. I don't think this is quite the same case, but as a team, it's kind of like, all right, sit back. Zeri's scaling. She's going to do more than 1,500 damage this game, I promise, but not in this case because, unfortunately, they never had that one miracle team fight. They looked for it at the end, but Yone didn't have enough damage.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I feel like Challengers has leveled up from LPL level where it's like, okay, we're just going to fight every single time and we'll see who flips what and we're going to win because we are good at mechanics. And we've kind of gone to old Jin style where it's like, if you're losing, just sit back and do nothing. That is
Rebel
exactly what happens.
Picks up POG.
Rebel?
Every time, Valdez. I think this is actually solid. Like, he has 186 CC score because he's Nautilus, but that also seems really high. I think that straight up, like, he set up so many of the plays on the bot lane and really shut down the Zeri, and also had some great mid-game plays. But for me, I'm kind of like, what about Courage, though? Or not Courage, sorry, the Feisty, but also Hambach had a great game, too, on the Maokai.
True.
Like, there were a lot of good options. Maybe it was a pretty split vote. We don't share the votes in Challengers, though.
We always do this on the global stream where we're like, well, that would have been my third pick for POG. And I kind of agree with you there, Wolf. But that was game number 2. Nice to see that we actually have some fight back here from KT. We are going to have a third game in this best-of-3 series. We will be right back after the break. Hello and welcome back to Challengers League for the LCK. It is me, Valdez, with Wolf, and we just had KT with a big comeback in game number 2, forcing a third game in this best-of-3.
Yeah, I think game 1, complex draft, couldn't execute it. Game 2 had a nice edge in the early game and then just kind of ran with it. And Feisty looks good. He looks very solid at the moment. Both his Rise and now his Syndra. I think he, in my opinion, seemed to be the strongest player on the roster. Voters went for Rebel. I think Rebel had a great game. But either way, I really think that anything could happen in this third game. Now, Kwangdong Freaks Challengers squad, it feels weird to call them Kwangdong Freaks because they're not really Kwangdong Freaks, the LCK team. They're Kwangdong Freaks Challengers, but it's like really long to say. Maybe
they're all
say
part
KDF
of the same roster.
Yeah.
And they are technically Kwangdong Freaks, but it's the players that are playing in the Challengers League.
Yeah, it's weird for me. We'll figure it out eventually, but I'm like sometimes like blah 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 when I say the full name. So in this case, Kwangdong Freaks Challengers team will have side selection.
Thinking blue here.
I think they're gonna pick blue side. Yes. We'll find out.
Will we
shortly.
see Varus banned in game number 3?
It's a good question. I think he's been the anti-Zeri so far. Like, I think in isolation he's pretty strong, but like he makes Zeri weaker. Zeri can't play the game. This becomes a problem. The Ashe Varus was really, really strong and really oppressive, and we didn't see the Heimerdinger in game 2 either. It was banned, so it could be a way for the team that wants Zeri to feel more comfortable. Problem is, if you're red side and you're like, oh, ban the Varus, they're like, cool, free Zeri, thanks.
Yeah.
So it becomes kind of problematic.
But then maybe you just go ahead and pick your own scaling bottom lane.
Sivir.
Yeah, you play Sivir. That's the third AD carry that's available. And you just play that, right? So maybe we'll see a little bit of a difference here, because the first couple of games were like, okay, we have this draft. If it works out, it's going to stomp. And then the team that's losing is like, I guess we lost. And, you know, I think there was a little bit of a fight back there from Kwangdong, but they just were, I don't know, it was like all of their homing missiles were miscalibrated, and they only wanted to attack Maokai. I think that Hambach did a really good job of just baiting everybody into his trap. And that was it. That was really the only fight we saw from the side of Kwangdong, was attacking Maokai and then dying. So it's been very one-sided, just because it feels like the team that is getting behind doesn't know how to come back. Or they're just saying, like I said before, you know, we've upgraded from LPL, now we're Jin Air level. It's like, we're just going to lose very slowly and try not to get caught. And then they just, like fall over and die. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's like, what's that meme? Like, sit down, try not to cry, cry a lot. It's like, sit behind turret, try not to scale only, but then scale only and
start
then die.
crying.
Like, I don't know. I can't translate the meme, but
it feels like these teams know how to win really well, but they don't really know what to do from behind.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we need to see both of them learn how to do, because these two teams, they're pretty good, but I wouldn't put any of them, you know, at number 1 or even number 2 in the league after what we saw yesterday. So I think, you know, there are going to be a lot of games, even if you are the best team in the league, where you are behind, and that is one of the skills of League of Legends, is learning how to play your comp from behind and knowing your comeback mechanics and ways to actually make yourself viable in the game.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen that yet in this series, Wolf.
Not yet. And we haven't really seen it that much in Challengers so far, but we do have confirmation Kwangdong selected blue side. No surprise here. You guys can see it on your screens as I say it. Let's see if we see some big changes in draft here for KT Rolster. I think, you know, they took some pieces of Kwangdong's Game 1 draft into their own, but we did see the Maokai first pick from them. The Varus ban is an interesting question, right? Will we see it? Will we just see it go through? Do KT have a different answer this time around? Because I think Kwangdong seemed pretty happy to just first pick it blind anyways, regardless of whether it's going to be Zeri or not, because it weakens the Zeri pick. And there's the Heimerdinger ban.
Yeah, a lot of similar bans so far. Karma gets banned once again here from KT, just like in game number 2, even when they were on blue side. And now it's Kwangdong Freaks' time to throw the gauntlet and say, we're going to play Varus. What are you going to do about it? No, they're just going to ban Varus on blue side. So maybe they want to play the Zeri.
Can try to force a Zeri ban here, then get Sivir. So
that is
let's find out. Let's find out if Hype wants to shake hands here, and I think that is going to be the case. Yuumi also available here, so gets a little bit tricky. Like, KT can get Zeri Yuumi right now for the first time. Will be the Wukong first pick here for Kwangdong Freaks, trying to keep this draft a little bit open-ended. I think in some ways, in this draft completely with the Varus ban especially, just saying, ball's in your court, KT. We're going to respond because we think we have the better read on the meta and the better read on the drafting.
Ashe being hovered. Could definitely go into the support role. Might even be where you would expect it in this meta. What is going to be the follow-up here from the side of KT?
I think they're going to hide what this Ashe is doing exactly for a little bit longer, and we're probably just locking a jungle. Yep, there's the Lee Sin. So looking for some pressure in the bottom lane, potentially with a lot of different AD carries that could work well with this still available. Caitlyn, we haven't really seen that much at all here in the LCK. Sivir still could work with Ashe as well. Varus being the one we've seen the most in this duo combination, but could be AD carry Ashe. So kind of keeping it open-ended here is we're just going to see the Draven locked in here, just straight up, just early on. Pike, Draven lane.
What?
Okay. There's some cash-ins.
What? And it does look like KT might have to reveal what they're
Brand?
going for. If they pick Brand, I am ready to write in my POG vote for Kwangdong Freaks. Nope, it is going to be Ashe Braum. So very defensive. You have good range. You can harass a little bit. But Draven Pike
Okay, well.
and Wukong. I mean, that's already extremely aggressive, the 3 picks that they have on the board.
Yeah, so KT are like, all right, let's take away the Fiora. Let's not give them a side lane win condition as well with this extremely strong bottom side. We'll see the Syndra ban here against Feisty. I think this is actually a really solid ban considering how good Feisty's laning has been so far and the power that this draft has in terms of engage with the Ashe Arrow, Scatter the Weak, Lee Sin Kick. Just take that one off the board. Honestly, like, there's a Kassadin angle here, I think, for Kwangdong Freaks if they want to play just full dive and try to control the early game and then just allow Kassadin to side lane and scale. Will be a Renekton ban here, though. Again, just stopping these powerhouse top lane champions because the bottom lane is already so strong.
They're setting up for that R4 Cassante.
Yeah, I think
They're
so.
like, all right, Illima, it's time to give you a piece of our mind, you know, a taste of your own medicine. Let's see if they ban it.
Oh,
Yes, they will.
First ban!
Yeah, the 2 bans from KT made it pretty obvious, but that does draw out the Cassante ban, which means that KT will get this Rise.
See if they can work out the Rise Realm Warp synergy a little bit better this time. They have decent threats with this Lee Sin, obviously in the Ashe Arrow, which can be effective from very long range to help set up some plays with the Realm Warp. So trying to out-macro here, Kwangdong Freaks. Will they be bold enough to play the Kassadin here, or is it just going to be a more standard pick? Looks like they want to play the Ahri into this again. And, I mean, with all the setup for picks they have here already, it does make a lot of sense. You can get the easy resets for the Ahri ult, and not a shocker, then that will be the one coming through. Final pick here, of course, going to be the blind top lane. And
Any Gnar enjoyers?
I don't think it's going to be Gnar necessarily here because, you know, it's just blind. GP definitely brings the scaling of this composition up quite massively. It is blind, however, and Castle, we know how much he loves his Irelia. We've seen a lot of
Yeah.
aggressive picks. There's Realm Warp on the table. Like, this is a very greedy pick here for Illima into a Rise comp. Aatrox.
Yeah, I think Illima just saying, okay, I'm just going to play GP. That's just going to happen. You know, maybe just calling for it in the draft. It doesn't necessarily fit with the rest of the composition. As you mentioned, it brings in the scaling element. But, yes, pretty interesting one to be B5'd, essentially. Does give Castle a very comfortable lane in the top side for himself. And yeah, I don't know. I kind of liked the direction Kwangdong were going in, but now I'm not so sure. I feel like KT got a slightly better edge in this draft.
In some ways, I like the GP pick in a theory crafting world where if you have this much control and you're going to be committing resources bottom side to get this Draven ahead, maybe set for some dives even potentially before Rise has Realm Warp, maybe the Gangplank just kind of gets to play freely up on the top side. And if Hambach is trying to punish the GP and Illima plays safe, which is not really his playstyle, but if he plays safe, then you have this really lopsided situation where KT can't punish Gangplank that well if he plays safe, nor can they control the bottom side of the map. So in that way, it really forces KT to think about the game very differently. Plus, Gangplank's ultimate can be used globally to help those Pyke engages, to get those resets, because Pyke's going to be looking for his own cash-ins with the Draven. If the money funnel goes into Bull before the mid-game, this team could be out of control.
Yeah. Illima going for comfort, going for something that he feels very confident in, and we'll have to see if that gambit pays off for them as there were a lot of bans focused in the top lane. Ilima, a very fantastic player, but Castle, I feel like, really put the pressure on in game 2. So, like I said, I think Ilima's really throwing the gauntlet and saying, hey, you know what? I'm just going to GP. I'm just going to play this and say, you know, let's see what you got, Castle. Bring me your best counter pick. I do not give a damn. And it is going to be pretty interesting to see how that top lane does play out and how aggressive they can get with this draft overall on the side of Kwangdong. But either way, guys, game 3 starts right now.
Right now. Immediately.
Yeah. That was about 30 seconds ago. 35 seconds, 36, 37. I think I was right on the money there.
Yeah!
Wow.
So,
we have Squirtle in this game.
yeah. A bit of a rare one.
Unbelievable. Actually, I think you can choose Squirtle in the Pokemon games. I don't think he's that rare.
Yeah, but in the original ones, if you don't choose him, you can't find him, and you have to trade.
True, that is true. Also, I think he was like second most popular, right? Behind Charmander, but actually Bulbasaur was the best.
Yeah, I picked Bulbasaur. And Bulbasaur ends up being the best in League of Legends as well,
Wow.
it turns out.
Some things never change.
Yep.
Yeah.
Maybe not popular. You know, people are like, ooh, I want to go real fast or burn some people, but the truth be told, you know, a little shield action, a little tenacity, it goes a long way.
We have a little bit of time here in this early game. I want to shout out Sejuani Baby Daddy. Says only 700. This is the Challengers stream. We did make this stream very recently. This is not the actual LCK itself. I mean, technically it is, but this is the Challengers League, so kind of like the Tier 2 league.
Sir, this is a CL.
It is a very new league. Give us some time to grow our numbers. Do not worry about the current numbers today.
Like I said earlier,
but thank you for your chat.
Please follow the channel. We got a whole 1,000 followers yesterday.
Yep. Follow me on my TikTok. No, I don't have a TikTok. Just kidding.
He does have a TikTok, but we're not going to talk about it.
But definitely follow the stream.
It's not League of Legends related.
Tell your friends. Yeah, don't tell them what I do on TikTok. Well, it's very private. Andil is, you know, he's didn't he play a couple of games of Lulu already?
Yeah.
I think. No, he didn't. He played Ashe in game 1.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
He did.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
So now he's like, okay, I get to play Pyke, so I'm getting a bit excited, you know.
Well, look, I mean, so far the pressure is on. Hasn't hit any big bone spears, but the CS numbers are looking good. Hype has lost a few. Here comes the level 3. This is what we talk about always. Won't be able to steal this away, but can harass.
Yeah. Courage, very annoying. He's got Andil coming in as well. Hanbok is going to have to give these wolves away. That is just the state of the way this game is having to be played, as Feisty does get charmed once again, but he is putting on the pressure once again as well.
Yeah, just like game 1, Feisty using his mana as a resource very aggressively here. Did start the corrupting potion, so is just going to be able to use that burn damage plus the extra mana he gets to constantly put that, hopefully, in his you know, what he's wanting to do here is put a kill pressure onto Cleaver so that Hanbok can come over, but it will be Courage, of course, who controls the bottom side of the map right now. And we'll push Feisty back here, so no early summoners expended, and still the bottom side of the map, Hype managing this one a lot better than the last. As I say it, it's going to take a bad trade.
Yeah, I think, you know, with the Draven Pyke face up, you know, they picked it pretty early on, and still the support pick was left to be picked here. There is no door to be held this time from Rebel, but at the end of the day, like, this is still a very nice duo, and you can see they're getting into it onto Andil. He is going to have to dash away, and the kiting potential of this is huge. Bull, he might have to flash out of this one as in goes Hype. He's not going to get the kill, though. Unbelievable that they got so close. They were putting on such great pressure, and then he took an axe to the face.
Yeah, the damage here is actually massive between the Pyke and the Draven, because just simply Pyke is going to do more damage than a Braum is in terms of melee, and then Pyke, or rather Draven, does super early game damage as well. And yes, Ashe is very sticky, the slows are good, and it looks like you're going to chase down, but the turn was actually sick. We'll get a replay of this in a moment, but really well played. And Bull and Andal going to pick up that first kill. Will be Pyke picking up the first kill itself. But still, great that it goes to the duo. Watching this, like, the trades were super good here, but then Hype is like, all right, look, I'm at 3/4 health here. I'm Ashe. I could slow. Andal takes a ton of damage from that Q and has the Ignite burning on him. But then they decide, okay, going to turn here. And look at the damage. Hype flashes.
Yeah, I mean, he's taking spinning axes to the face as Bull perfectly kites it back. And then also, Andal's got just a little bit of mana. He throws in a Q. It's just that extra bit of burst damage. And Ashe was level 3, right? So like, it's not like she's got good stats. She just gets burned down by some insane damage.
But I mean, the play was good.
Not calculated.
It was a little bit miscalculated. That's maybe that's our new phrase. Miscalculated.
True, true. Oh, look at this
Cleaver.
gank. Dude, Rebel's insane. I love this guy. He's gonna get a kill for his team. Like, he's like, okay, well, bot lane's, you know, my AD carry's trolling. I'm gonna go mid instead. You know, like everybody's solo queue games, but actually he makes an insane play.
He has
on
a
the
stack
cleaver
as well, so he can take out that cannon minion, and they're actually looking for potentially a plate. But he leaves his AD carry high and dry.
Yeah, and to be honest, I mean, good capitalization here from the side of Kwangdong, but Hype, you don't have your support, you can't be there. You just can't be there. We'll have to see how that all started, though.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, on one hand, Rebel's play is super sick, but what he does to his AD carry as a result is he leaves him high and dry, as I said. You can't be there, but if you're not there, then you're not farming as Ashe, and then you're going to get further behind. But now you've given over an additional kill to the Draven Pyke lane. The CS is abysmal here, and, like, Rebel is trying to CS under turret here as he holds the wave. He's like, this is really bad. Please get over here.
Yeah.
So on one hand, Worth does accelerate Feisty to his Rod of Ages, but I think the cost is too high for this, unfortunately.
I mean, it could have been handled so much better from pretty much everybody on the side of KT. Like, Rebel did a good job. I think that Hype needs to just back away. We're seeing some very angry messages about Hype and his play. You know, it was very close on the first trade. He probably just got caught by a very nice hook on the side of Andal. Maybe it was a little bit too far up the lane. Mistakes happen. At the end of the day, you know, he did give a ton of gold over to Bull, who did get a very early cash-in as well, and did go for that early Dirk. And this lane is pretty much over.
Yeah.
Right? But at least Feisty's ahead. I mean, he was our POG from game number 1, so Hype is like, okay, whatever, you know, I'm not really here anymore. I'm just going to be throwing in arrows, and maybe Feisty and Castle can carry me this game.
I think the idea, you know, is so solo queue-esque in a way. Like, my AD carry is trolling, I'm going mid. Like, that joke that you made may just be how KT now has to look at this game, ironically. Because he is once again going to be their best win condition in terms of damage, and the Ashe just may be, it's not support Ashe, but maybe acting as support Ashe in this game with no items will just be a arrow cooldown. Let's set up for some other big plays. Okay, Rebel?
They're actually trying to fight this. Nice knock-up from Rebel, but you cannot fight when you're this far behind. Now Feisty's getting in there. We did see the GP ultimate on top of everything else, so that's something you mentioned in the draft as well, actually helping in that bottom lane fight. They didn't even necessarily need it to kill the Braum, but it certainly made things a little bit quicker, and they got a free kill out of it.
And if Hambach is able to set up dives here onto Illima, then he's not there to defend the bottom lane. This is the kind of insurance policy that Illima affords to Kwangdong Freaks here, because he's like, okay, I'm going to do a lot of damage in the late game. You guys are going to get ahead early, and when that starts to kind of wane a little bit, if Ashe comes back, which seems very unlikely at this case, like, you're not supposed to get this far ahead. But as Ashe power starts to come up and as the lead wanes, then Gangplank comes in. If he survives the pressure, it's like, okay, if Hambach comes top, bottom does better. If Hambach stays bottom, then Illima stays even, in this case, even ahead in CS. And Andal's coming up for the roam. Castle in trouble.
Oh, no. Yeah, the Castle, he is going to flash out of this one. Gets a little bit body blocked by his own minions, and then Andal just puts on the moves. Very nice flash play to get on in there and secure the kill. Probably didn't even need it, but, you know, just wanted to make sure that's a very fast Aatrox. He doesn't get away. We do have Cleaver with ult available. He doesn't have his flash, but they might be able to force his ult here, maybe, as they do go in. The kick into the wall is actually not really a kick at all, actually. Cleaver just going to be ulting here. They're trying to get on top of Cleaver, but they're not quite able to, and now Hanbok is incredibly low. Can he get out of this one is the question, as another hook might be coming in. They force the flash out of the poor Lee Sin, who is just trying to make one play for his team.
And for the first time, Bull is actually under a little bit of pressure down here. The problem is it's not for long enough, and I don't think they can even get half a plate. Going to be about exactly half of it. As the cool thing about, and one of the oppressive and annoying things about, depends on your perspective, of Wukong, is that he could just shut down big plays like this so easily by pressing R. And it's one of the reasons why, despite multiple nerfs, he's just so relevant in these metas where you have these really strong carries, and dives are so important across time, but in this meta, it's one of the only ways you can try to do something in the early game, and Wukong just says, nope. He presses R, and everyone is locked out, and this is another one of those opportunities where you try to dive the Ashe, who has ult and charm. Wukong comes over, and things just go wrong.
Okay, so Hanbok immediately turned onto this Rift Herald. Castle is doing a fantastic job of just zoning for his jungler, who is pretty low. Hanbok is able to gain some health out of all of this.
But they don't get the eye.
They don't get the eye, but at least they did get the gold out of the Herald, I suppose. I mean, they are kind of clutching at straws here a little bit, as Rebel is trying to CS. Probably not the best idea. Looks like a Rune Prison will keep him alive for now.
And Hype is able to catch a minion wave, still significantly behind here, but he's just trying to see us when he can, wherever he can, at any opportunity. And as anyone who's been 0-2 in a bot lane knows, like, it's one of the most miserable experiences ever. You can blame your support, you can blame enemy OP, but regardless, or maybe you made a misplay. It doesn't matter if you're blaming anybody. You just know you're going to have a bad time, right? And this is one of those games where Hype is just like, give me some money, any money, please. He's like, got his coin purse out. He's like, hey, minions, like, can you spare some coin for an Ashe with no mana who's 0-2 in the lane? Can you spare some coin?
Yeah. He's like even struggling to kill minions. Like, it's taking him a while to do that because he only has Zerker Greaves. Bull handles this pressure very well. He knows it's a Rise on the other side. He knows it's a Lee Sin, and he says, well, I can just sack a lane, or a wave rather, and just farm safely. I'm ahead enough, and he will do just that. He stays alive. No gank comes out from KT.
Illima, I love how when he doesn't know where Hanbok is, he just backs up. He puts some barrel damage on the Castle, pushes the lane. Look at Castle's health, how much damage he did with that barrel chain. Then as soon as he's like, well, I don't know, walk back, play it safe, chill, just use my Q to CS. Reset the barrel chain, just sit back, catch a wave, don't need to be greedy, stay even with the Aatrox, got my Essence Reaver online, and I am a late game condition that probably won't be needed this game, but I am still just going to play it out safe. Barrel chain, or just single barrel these minions under turret, grab that extra cash, and, you know, it's not Illima's way, right? It's not his playstyle, he's usually the flashy guy, but he could play the slow gangplank game as well.
Yeah, he's playing it really well. He's not pushing the lane up. He's allowing Castle to, you know, have lane presence. But as you mentioned, you know, that's kind of the way it's going to go early on in this game. As we do have another hook here onto Rebel, and Courage is right here. It is a Braum, though, so no need to get too excited. You know, Kwangdong maybe learning from game 2. They're like, oh, okay, that is a tanky guy. Our coach said to not all in onto the tanky guy. They learned that from game 2. And they have brought that into game 3.
KT, I don't know if you want to commit to this, though.
I don't think they knew he was there in the push, but now they know. As the Ashe Arrow hits him, I think they were going for Cleaver with that one, but it's a win's a win. They'll take the Pike instead of the Ahri. That's totally fine.
Courage, because the Drake is spawned, Courage doesn't want to commit to try to defend him there, because it probably would have been a fool's errand anyways. Probably he still dies, and I thought Draven was closer, but I mean, that's a long-range arrow, so the stun duration is very long, and there's just no saving him. I thought perhaps committing there would have been a bridge too far for KT this far behind, but they do actually get the kill. 2 kills for Feisty now, as we're going to watch this. No vision whatsoever, as you say. The control ward there.
They're like, okay, let's go for the Ahri.
Yeah, look at the setup for Hanbok. They're like, okay, kill that one! Kill that one instead! Who's that? Oh, Andil, yeah, get him! It was so hilarious watching Hanbok. He's like, All right, I got my eye on you.
Yeah.
Accidentally succeeding KT Rolster.
I see what you did there. There's a Draven in the game. Okay, Ash, he is going to have to flash away. And now Bully's getting teleported on. KT looking to turn this game around as Castle is incredibly strong at this point in time. He is going to dunk on the Pike once again. There are a lot of members of Kwangdong now running into this lane. The arrow is going to go wide, but actually zones Draven away from the rest of his team. And now Hanbok comes down here. They got the Rise porting in as well. Straight into this one, flashes behind them, picks up another kill.
Illima.
And all of a sudden, this game is opened wide open.
Illima's like, no minions for a while, no minions for a while. Try me, try me. They will.
Dead.
Flashes the pull. Doesn't matter. Or does it? Illima against the world.
Yeah, against literally 5 members.
Literally against 5 members.
Okay, I have my kick. I got this, and yeah, he did get it. And that was way harder than it had to be, but they do finally get him, and Castle's going to have to pay the price for that one, alongside of Hanbok, who did die in the end. So the shutdown goes to the Ahri, and we are just full challengers here, Wolf.
Yep, I was about to ask for a refund. I was like, I was promised flippy games, crazy comebacks. You know, I watched yesterday's game. It was one of those
dives that don't work.
Yeah, I was promised this. You know, Chronicle said, look, guys, let's cast challenge in English. It's gonna be great. We're gonna have a full team. I was like, I don't know, but I committed, right? And then the games today were very boring and one-sided. And then we get this one, which is quite a banger. This is just a really nice rotation over from Castle, as you mentioned. Is super strong. He's level 11, so he has his upgrade on his ultimate. He doesn't have Gore Drinker yet, but he still has the whip. Does so much damage against this team setup that isn't ready to fight, because the DPS in Kwangdong's comp is insanely high if it's set up, but when it's split up like this, it's pretty rough. Notice where the minion wave is right now. It's where Ash is. Look at me.
Yeah.
Like, so Illima knows he has tons of time. He flashes the chains, handles that extremely well, and weak side Illima is like, you know, that guest appearance where you're like, oh, like, well, it wouldn't be fun if a play-by-play caster does analysis, you know, it's the valid analyst move, or like, ooh, what if the analyst did play-by-play kind of thing? I love weak side Illima. Yeah.
Well, Castle looks like he might be dead. He's trying to trade this one back. He does have the Gore Drinker now, but unfortunately just a little bit too much CC with the Pike and all that good stuff. So nice rotation comes out there from Kwangdong to get the punish onto that one, and they even stop this bottom lane from pushing. They're trying to get this first turret in the top side. They already have the first turret bled in the bottom side, but at least able to make the trade in their favor with one click of an R button.
Yep. It's just going to force Feisty to proxy and force that second wave, and he will eventually get the turret, but it's slowed down while Illima picks up top side, and the Rift Herald will go over. Second Herald here, which means they can open up mid, and if they time it right, you know, if they hold on to it for a pretty long time here, might actually be able to use that to grab the Infernal Drake, which of course would be Lava Drake. That's trying to keep up with the lore here in the Challengers broadcast.
Yeah.
They introduced a lot yesterday, didn't they? There was a lot of lore introduced yesterday.
Absolutely. We had to read an entire book, essentially, before coming onto the cast. Or watch an entire series of movies, I guess you could say.
I mean, it was an 8-hour movie yesterday.
Yeah. Okay. Yep, they were on Vision. And, you know, there has been a ton of craziness back and forth. Kwangdong Freaks are in the lead in terms of gold. But actually, the most fed member on the Rift is Feisty.
Yeah.
One thing has been consistent throughout all 3 games. We've had lots of stomps, lots of crazy back and forth here, at least in Game 3. But one consistency has been that Feisty gets ahead, he gets fed, and he puts himself in a position to carry. He did that in Game 2. He's here in Game 3. His team is behind. Can he carry his 3-0 rise? Very curious about this movie.
We're going to find out the ending pretty soon as we're getting to the end of the second act here as we crest mid-game. And look, the Rift Herald is used here a little bit early because they saw an opportunity. They're all grouped up here. They want to guarantee they get the turret at least. But going to be 35 seconds of jockeying for position here for KT Rolster. Long-range engage in the Ash Arrow. They, of course, have a potential to flank with this Aatrox. Castle's actually going to grab this Crab, which is pretty huge for his movement speed and the ability to get into the back line. No vision, though. Don't walk too far forward, Rebel. Yeah. They're so split.
They should know, I mean, 100% where they are. Rebel's trying to actually frontline this, a huge Braum ultimate, and they didn't know about Castle from the bottom side. But where is the rest of the team? Facey finally gets here, as this is a very broken up fight. And take a look at the damage that the Rise is already doing. The Gangplank Guillemot, he ran out of his oranges. He already took one bite. And now Andal's going to be the second one as well. KT, they look to be coming back in a big way. They will take this Lava Drake, the first one. And now Facey is 4-0, and his Seraphs is complete.
It's crazy how, and yeah, now he's got Rod Seraphs, and like, he got ahead, and then he got so much further ahead so quickly that his Seraphs is like outpacing the Rod, and he's just sitting there going, ooh, gonna get a full level up pretty soon too. I've been side laning all game. This is a really nice engage option for Kwangdong, but unfortunately, Castle, as you mentioned, was unseen. And he's over here, he's got his Gore Drinker now, and now the rest of Kwangdong Freaks used a ton of cooldowns on a target who doesn't die.
Yeah.
And they're just trapped in here, and Andal is like really hopefully trying to get something on the backline. This was way over aggressive. I think this is a eyes are bigger than your stomach kind of moment here for the Pyke player in this case, where he's like, no, I can turn this around, I'm super fed. It's like, well, yeah, you guys were ahead. You're still ahead in gold, but you've lost control of this game very rapidly.
And you could see, I mean, in this game, the fact that Ashe got dunked on in the early game, Hype kept his cool. We're going to be honoring him with, you know, keeping his cool throughout this game. He got behind, and now he has 7 assists, right? He throws out ultimates, he throws out arrows, he's doing his job. He is not doing the damage, that's fine. He actually did more than Castle in that fight, funnily enough, just because Kwangdong Freaks decided they were going to 5-man a Braum in the enemy jungle and get themselves wildly out of position.
Yeah,
again, extremely confusing.
Yeah.
Like this is peak challengers, Wolf. You should not be doing that. And they did it in game 2 from behind. They were ahead in this one, but not. Doesn't really feel like that anymore, even though the gold is slightly in their favor.
Now, Gangplank does have his collector online, but it doesn't feel amazing at this moment in time, considering the front line is so difficult to kill. And it's not tank Rise, right? Like we saw tank Rise for a little bit, but still Rise fairly difficult to kill here. You're not going to burst him down. Ashe is going to be at the back lines, and between the Braum, the Ashe arrows, the rune prisons, and this incredibly difficult to kill Aatrox in the front line, you can't just face roll these team fights. You have to be a little bit more subtle. You have to look for picks. You have to look for backlines, and you don't just walk into brushes and go, all right, here we go, because sometimes your coordination is good enough to make that happen, but sometimes KT just go like, oh, our comp is so good into that. Uh-oh, that's going to be
got him. Support Ashe. Doing her job in this game.
Got the Rage Knife, getting a little bit angrier.
Okay, well, you're going to miss your charm. I'm not sure if they have enough damage to take out Facey. I mean, he is just sticking in this one. He has a massive shield. Like, you missed everything on the Ari. You need to back away. And the rotation is coming in now from KT. That's going to be a free Wukong. That is just going to be handed over to Hambach. They're not going to waste too much time trying to give that to a carry. And, yeah, I mean, again, kind of clutching at straws. The Rise is incredibly fed. He was a little bit out of position, but he's so strong, like, you don't have the damage to burst him at this point in time.
Looks like it's going to be a Baron here. No jungler for the side of Kwangdong Freaks. And, I mean, teleport's coming through, but this is, I think, even committing to stopping this is probably not the play.
They have insane damage. I mean, that was tried to be stolen away from with the GP ultimate, I suppose.
Realm Warp, though, now they're trapped.
Yeah, they don't have a GP ultimate either, as Ilima is just going to be 100-0, essentially. Charm comes in from Cleaver, and the arrow will sail wide. Again, guys, I was joking. It's not actually support Ashe, just because she got so far behind. She is essentially playing like a support Ashe. Not really doing a lot of damage, but she's doing her job.
Yeah, so for those in Twitch chat are like, wait a minute, like support Ashe, but with shield bow. No, it's actually AD carry Ashe. We made the joke because she died twice early and was massively
Braum was
behind.
the quote-unquote carry.
Yeah, because he came over and helped set up a kill for Facey, but we're just rolling with the joke. You came late, okay? You weren't there, and it was really funny, and Valdez is very comical.
It was hilarious, yeah.
But now the Rise is actually somewhat tanky because he has his Zhonya's, and that means that it's very difficult to dive him regardless of stats. The Ari Charm's got a hit, though, and
Ari is the only AP damage as well. I mean, and is Ari going to be doing relevant damage to the Rise? I don't think so, not at this point in time. Like, she has a couple of items, but I don't know. She hasn't really been hitting charms or anything like that. It feels like Feisty has been the big mid laner in all 3 games.
You can see these 2 spikes of KT gold. You know, they've only had a gold lead for such a short period of time, but the momentum has shifted, and the low-range Draven is starting to become a big liability because of that huge magic damage in the front line that he has to break through at low range. He's either putting himself at risk or is just not going to be able to do anything. So these barrel chains need to be what slowly starts the fights here for Kwangdong Freaks, but their comp can't both be a pick comp but also a slow barrel poke comp. And so, like you said in the draft, like you called it out really early on, this draft seems very odd and lacking in synergy, but the ideas of the early game, they were great and they worked, but how do you close the game out as Castle?
Well, Castle's pushing by himself in the bottom lane while his team is doing the Dragon. He does have Core Drinker, and he actually did bait them into an awkward spot now. Looks like KT might try to trade this one in a 4v5 situation. Tons of damage already coming out from Hambach, actually, and Hype is actually beginning to do some damage, kiting everybody out, picks up a couple of kills.
Feisty has Realm Warp now.
And Feisty is just a monster. Like, this guy is a machine gun that's got a rocket launcher on top of it, and he is flashing in and doing insane stuff. Bull is left alone, and they're actually going to give that kill over to Hambach. Interesting choice. KT have fully taken over this game, and they leave the Dragon. They didn't take it, but they took the rest of Kwangdong after Castle seemingly was out of position, but ended up being some pretty good bait.
Yeah, I think Castle's idea here is I just want to control this wave and make sure that we have the Drake kind of on lock without really a fight or a contest. You know, Wukong can be very annoying to deal with when you're on a Drake like this because you can just clone in and steal it away. It's very difficult to play around if you don't have vision control. But Castle here is like, I'm pretty safe, right? They can't actually engage on me. And if they do, I can buy tons of time, and that's exactly what he does with the Gore Drinker. Look at how much damage he does.
Yeah.
And then by the time he gets here, Realm Warp is not up for Feisty, but Feisty knows he could just straight up face roll this fight because he has Zonias. He just got 16, by the way, from his Rod of Ages. And now Realm Warp comes up, like it's coming up. He's like, all right, well, I'm just going to warp behind them, and this is a full wipe, total control of the bot side of the map. Second Infernal Drake, or rather Lava Drake here for KT. I mean, so many extra stats in his pocket, too. And what comes with that is basically immaculate map control that I don't think could be circumvented here for Kwangdong Freaks. Now he's building tanky Feisty, by the way, because he knows just I have enough damage with the Rod of Ages alone. Oh, God.
He's so dead. Oh, my God. This is a Ahri, by the way, but it doesn't matter. Hype, man, this guy has really turned it around. Like, he got caught that one time without a support. The Braum roamed mid, got Feisty ahead. It was looking dire, but he has hit, like, almost every single Ash arrow. Except that one in the mid lane. But other than that, he's been really on point. And now KT are really running away with this game.
Tilt-proof vote goes to Hype for sure.
Absolutely.
I think Feisty is finally going to get a POG, though.
I hope so.
Like,
I mean, Rebels had some really nice Braum ultimates. Like, this is one game where I would actually, I would argue that Rebel has a better chance to get POG than in game 2, but I would still give it to Feisty.
Yeah.
So I'm worried that Rebel might get it again.
Castle has had some pretty incredible plays, but I don't think I can vote for him. I feel like if we're talking about how this game has gone, like Castle has been the carrot and Feisty has been the stick. You know, Castle has often just baited Kwangdong Freaks into overextending, and then Feisty is like, I'm Rise, I'm warping, we're doing damage. I'm level 17, I'm 4-0 and 5, 700 gold bounty, and I think there's no question he is going to possibly double the next highest damage dealer on his team, if not more than double when we get to that post-game screen. We'll see. Hype's catching up.
Okay, that arrow, we can shelve that one. I don't want to see that again. Let's not play the replay. But it doesn't matter because Illima's wildly out of position himself now. And I think the tilt is getting a little bit now on the side of Kwangdong. You know, they have really had a lot of issues with positioning, and that is no different. Just way too far up the lane by himself. Easy pick. There are about 17 different abilities on the side of KT that can catch you out if you're out of position. And it didn't have to be the Ash Arrow this time.
A really good question from chat that I don't think we're going to have answered is why did Draven build armor boots, the steel caps? Good question. Looking at things, Not entirely sure myself. Doesn't really seem to make sense, but KT are going to look for this Baron again. Kwangdong Freaks here trying to group up to contest, but they have no great tools. And there's no side lane, there's no cross map. You're doomed.
And they don't have a lot of good targets either. It's like, okay, who are we going to attack here? Look at the damage that Bull is doing to Feisty. It's not a lot. Okay, that hook was pretty huge, as KT are pretty out of position for this one, kind of splitting their focus, and now there is an opportunity for Kwangdong. Fantastic kick from Hambak, though. He puts an end to that pike, and now Hambak is going in there, maybe a little bit over aggressive, as he is going into 4 people alone, and he is going to be taken out, so not quite sure about that one, Hambak. It was a very nice kick, but after that, now it's just Bull who is frontlining, and the Challengers play.
That's my Challengers
continues to deliver. Oh, man. Is this just going to be an ace? I mean, it's only Hype that survives.
There is a ton of standing gold for Kwangdong Freaks to pick up with bounties, by the way, on the map.
What was that?
Mid bounty. Yeah, that's not the good kind of what was that.
Somebody get Chronicler on the phone. Like.
Well, top turret is going to be the next target here. If they can get it before bounties fall off, they will get a lot of money. Still behind in gold. Looks like they're not quite going to commit all the way. Illima's going to go for a back. This fight is nasty, okay? So everything goes on to Feisty, and this is the first time, like, good block here from Castle. He might have died earlier. But look at all the damage that goes on to Feisty. Courage here kind of helping to set this up. Feisty has 2 Zonias here, and the turn is very late for KT. They could have actually turned much faster and given up the Baron, but the top half of the map, Hype and all, are like, no, we're going to kill a Baron fast enough. We have enough damage. But unfortunately on this Ashe, who's been very behind most of the game, really you don't have enough damage, and Feisty's left out to dry. If they turn faster, Feisty Zonias earlier has a lot more space to work with. Charm misses him even after the Zonias, but he still goes down. If he lives there, I think this is a completely different fight, but KT just couldn't actually make the decision fast enough to pull off that Baron, because they've got great turn.
If this were the LCK Wolf, I think we would have seen a 5-man turn and a victory in the team fight from KT. Instead, what we got was 3 guys trying to zone, not having enough damage to take down the Baron in time, a very split fight where the turn was not on time, and now it's anybody's game. Okay, we do have the 3rd Lava Drake going to the hands of KT, and this one is all over the place. Feisty did a ton of damage, but he gets low once again, as in goes Hambak, a fantastic kick into that back line.
Hype doing so much damage.
Yeah, take a look at Bull, though. He's also full health, but unfortunately now for him, he has lost his entire front line, and he is just going to be dunked on by this Aatrox. So this time around, Kwangdong, they thought they had an angle, but it ended up being a full turn of a 5v5. Cleaver does have Cleanse, because he does have the spell book, and a very nice fight this time from the side of KT.
There was no follow-up. I just thought it was a pretty nasty arrow right there. After we've seen some near hits this series, but that one was, you know, it was a near miss, but it actually goes ahead and hits. So I just want to give him the little hype shout out. So we Feisty voters.
I'm a Feisty voter.
I'm a Feisty
voter.
Yeah.
I think that this time there is an argument for Rebel. Game 2, I didn't really see the arguments as, okay, Pike trying to do Pike things, gets in there, just trying to delay this one from going down, but it doesn't seem too likely. Basically pretty low, though, but he is able to kite down Courage. That is going to be the end of this one. KT, they turn it back. The reverse sweep actually does happen, even though Kwangdong ended up stomping them in game number 1. Did not matter. KT able to take the best of 3.
Huge comeback win for them in this 3rd game. And you know, you highlighted some of your concerns about the composition in the draft, and I did feel like it wasn't going to matter enough, because I thought, okay, Kwangdong seemed to be the better blue side early game team. They're going to control the early game. We saw both teams struggle for comebacks, right, in games 1 and 2. So I thought, okay, early game comp on blue side, probably going to get ahead. We're going to see it work out the same way. But then they really just overextended quite a bit. I mean, actually, you know, I joked that he was probably going to double Ashe's damage. By the end of that, Hype was doing a ton of damage in those last few fights, and only ends up being 5k behind the Rise. I mean, this POG could go. This POG could literally go to anyone.
Yeah.
Maybe not Hambak, but like he had some good moments, to be honest.
Yeah. But then he did almost throw them the game. But other than that, like, he was really good. I do agree with you. Feisty did the most damage on his team, but not in the game, actually. That did go to Illima, as, You know, Illima's GP, always really impressive, always good. But I don't know, it just didn't really fit. Like, it did a lot of damage. It did a lot of damage to the Aatrox, made the lane a little bit annoying. But at the end of the day, it didn't really, you know, everybody was like trying to dive in. I think they would have done really well if they had either another diver or maybe even like a frontline tank to try to make even more room for like the Ahri and the Draven to actually pop off. But we didn't really get that. And the Pyke also really struggled, I feel, with the intense amount of CC that was on the side of KT. Like, if they got further ahead in the early game and they just really came over the top, like, maybe it wouldn't have mattered. But after the way this game went, it almost felt like both sides were like, okay, we've put on a show for long enough. Now let's go full challengers. And they just couldn't hold on for long enough. They couldn't make their composition work.
I think if Rise hadn't been so far ahead in those fights that, like, if Feisty wasn't super fed, super massively ahead, really early Seraphs, I think those fights where they just kind of tried to steamroll and just kind of face roll into the bush and look for those fights, if the charms hit as well a little bit better, then I do think that they probably win those because, yeah, you've got some slows from Ashe, you've got the Braum, you've got decent peel, but his damage is so high that you're like, oh, I think I'm going to kill the Rise. You like get close, and then he just kills everyone. And you're like, that's it. I already used my barrel chain. What do we do now?
It's true. I mean, everything you're saying, it makes a lot of sense, actually, on second look. Like, if you look at these compositions and they're even, imagine just going into melee range against Aatrox, Rise, and Ashe.
Yeah, and Braum, like, too.
Yeah, and Braum. And the Lee Sin who can just kick you away. Like, I don't know. You're giving the damage dealers on KT basically exactly what they want. Like, Aatrox is like, yeah, sure, come into me. That's fine.
Hey, that's my boy, Feisty. Got it this time. All right.
Hey. Shout out to Rebel.
Yeah.
You know?
Shout out to Castle, too. I think Castle had some decisions that I think looked silly from, like, a layman's perspective, but the way he... some of his deaths were actually in order to get control somewhere on the map, and sometimes his sacrifice led to a huge success in the team fight, where Feisty himself comes and capitalizes with a Realm Warp. So, good Aatrox play. Yeah.
It's funny that at the end of all of this, I do feel like it was a little bit of 3 games of draft diff. You know, like, it does feel like, you know, Game 3 could have gone into the hands of Guangdong. I think that Games 1 and 2 were a little bit more obvious in terms of the draft diff, but this one a little bit as well. I think that KT kept it cool, kept it calm. They got their carries fed, not the Ashe, but eventually got there. And yeah, just really good stuff. I like how KT were able to keep their cool throughout the entire series and in Game 3, and they played to their win conditions very well. So Feisty makes it through, very well deserved. Probably should have gotten Game 2 as well, but that's fine. He'll definitely get some more POG votes in the future, no doubt. So yeah, pretty cool stuff.
So if you guys were watching yesterday, you know that on the Korean stream we do have an interview. And even though Valdez and I are pretty fluent in Korean, it's probably best to have an official translator. So we're not going to be translating the interview. We'll eventually have, hopefully, some interpretation for you guys in the interviews in the future. But we don't today. So it's just going to be us kind of chatting it up and giving our own thoughts and looking at Twitch chat and stuff like that. I'm going to keep being a shill. Follow the LCK Global 2023 channel where you're watching this right now.
LCK CL Global 2023.
No, I think it's just LCK Global 2023.
Nope.
No.
You're like pointing at it. You're like, yeah, it says CL.
No. No wonder when I was trying to search for it yesterday, it didn't keep popping up. All right, that makes sense.
Yeah. It's, you know, it's kind of a long name. I think I would have gone for something a little bit differently, but yeah, the CL, it's very unassuming. You know, you don't see it at first, but it's kind of like the Ashe in Game 3, right? It's like, you know, who cares about the CL, but actually it matters a lot because it is LCK Challengers League and not LCK Global 2023. But guys, we are getting the word that we are to take a little break for now, so we will see you in a bit